how to beat. I mean, he's he's top dog.
He set the standard, and no one has lived up to that since.
Everything going. Yeah, it probably. I mean, every single time that they had a new serial killer, like, oh, this is this guy. I don't think anything even came close until, You're
right. Yeah, Gacy was just burying bodies under his floorboards. It's like, that's amateur status. Dude, you gotta dump it down the chute, it's still burn it in the kiln, sell the skeletons.
That being said...
Thanks, Dom. Hey, guys.
Shut up.
We're over here at the Dylan and Joe Basin Podcast. Welcome to our most recent episode. We're a couple clowns here and your hosts at a special event called this episode of the podcast. I'm Dylan, one of the hosts. You guys want to let us know who you are?
I'm Joe. I'm everyone's favorite character.
What's your favorite food, Joe?
Buff chicks.
Nice.
I'm Dom, and Joe's buff chicks are in my fridge because he forgot them here.
Hey, must be the money. You know, I give you
haven't
permission.
Eaten them,
you
but
can eat those.
I did eat your mozzarella sticks the next day. And by now the chicken is not good because Buffalo Wild Wings uses cardboard boxes with little cutouts in them.
Oh, let all the
that doesn't actually seal any of it, so
I was thinking of Little Caesars. I was like,
they give you a little window that you can see in the box. You don't have to open it. You can kind of look through.
That's nice.
So you can
sunroof
on them.
It's got a sunroof on the to-go boxes.
So you can put it on your dashboard.
Little Caesars,
the sun warms it up.
I forgot that Buffalo Wild Wings isn't Little Caesars.
Oh yeah, no, you're thinking of Wingstop, I think.
And I was like, you guys have been to fucking... No, I've been to Wingstop. I was like, you guys have actually been to Little Caesars?
Yeah.
Buffalo Wild Wings is like a sports bar. It's not even like a fast food place.
I went to one in Springfield, Massachusetts on my bicycle. Anyways.
Wow.
Yeah. Weird
bragging.
ride a bike.
Well, let's keep up the trend with starting all our episodes off talking about our personal dietary habits.
Let's keep doing it.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the World's Fair in 1893. Took us a little bit to get to that. But, so guys, we've been talking about this topic for a long time. Guys, as in everyone, and gals, and new listeners, and old listeners, and dead listeners, whoever,
Sure.
1893 World's Fair is something that wasn't the most mainstream for people to know about if you didn't really know about it or go digging for it. And it's
Unless
really,
you lived
really,
it.
really, really, really cool. So we want to let you know. So
absolutely,
that's today's episode.
And this might be one of our longest back burner topics that we actually did. Usually, if we have a topic for 2 or 3 weeks and we don't do it, it just disappears and we just decide not to do it anymore. This one's been in the books for at least a month and a half, maybe 2 months now. So
yeah,
I'm glad we're finally doing it.
Or you can write in to us and give us a recommendation for what you want a topic on, and we'll get to it in 1 to 3 years.
Yeah,
yes, because we actually respond to our fan mail very quickly all the time. We're looking through it every single day.
Mm-hmm. That's what we get paid the big bucks for.
Sure is.
So yeah, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the World's Fair. I thought we'd get started by, like you just said, Dylan, not a lot of people really know about the World's Fair because we live in the modern era where the World's Fair is, E3 and Comic-Con, and you just look at everything online, it's already advertised for you. You don't have to have a big gathering and show it off. As close as we have to that right now, it's just the Olympics is like the longest tradition of all the world coming together to show off, and one city gets a big bid to make a huge economy boost for themselves. And the one we're talking about today in particular, Chicago got the goods in that. But we thought we'd kind of describe what the World's Fair is for folks just so we know what kind of environment we're talking about. Because as we've established in our pre-production meeting, 1893 is not the first one. And it wouldn't be the last either, which I also found out.
And I knew that it wasn't the first. I knew it wasn't the last. So I'm clearly the smartest person here.
That's great. And Dom, with that, why don't you tell us about what the first World's Fair was and when it was?
Before you do that, I just want to say, because Dom gave his position on this, I thought this was the first one, but not the last one. So we all had a little bit of a take on this.
Yeah. We all do a lot of research for what we want to talk about. Not necessarily the whole subject, but what we're going to talk about. So go ahead, Dom.
We do enough. Well, the World's Fair is basically Just well, the first one started in 1797 in Prague, and basically
Also
it's just
Prague or Prague.
Yes, Pragu, really good sauce. Basically, it's the city gets the bid to be the World Fair, and everyone comes and they build these incredible structures and show off all the latest technologies of the day, basically. And they show off, it's not just technologies. That is the big part usually, but it's also, different areas for different cultures to show off their roots and stuff. And
just it's kind of like Epcot
big
before
moneymaker
Epcot.
for whatever city has it. Yes, it's basically a traveling Epcot.
It is. And the coolest thing about it is it's not just people to go show off and do things. You want to show off really big time, and you want to show off your technology. So you want to bring your best, most futuristic, crazy things that no one's ever seen before in the entire world. And you bring them to a place where everyone can see them, and you represent your country and your technological advancements in civilization.
This is a time before television, internet, even mass media, and this would be one of the best ways for countries to save up their new technologies and then bust it out in the World's Fair, and people come from all over and they go, holy shit, look what Czechoslovakia is doing. Bad example, but you know what I mean. It's like you just bring up your goods and you go, holy crap, look what they got going on here over here in Japan. They have some kind of robot dog or something,
Yeah,
cool.
So 2 years notice in advance, the city, country, or whatever is given to prepare for this. So that's wild, because if you...
It's only half the time as the Olympics has to prepare.
Half the time the Olympics, and the structures and the things that those countries have to build are immense.
Yeah, I mean, most of what we hear about the World's Fair is just like how amazing and spectacular the entire thing is. Almost like they dropped the city out of like Sim City. They clicked down and just brought this amazing exposition, which I didn't even know that was a term for a fair until I went to research here. I was like, exposition is how you talk in movies. It's not a fair, and now I know it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what expo stands for.
It's actually the word expo stems from exposition.
Yeah,
cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we're back to 1893, and it was the Chicago.
Oh no,
Fair.
let's talk about a couple other World's Fairs though.
Oh yeah,
there's some famous ones beforehand. I'll at least say that United States had one before Chicago. Was it? I think it might have been New York also, or I think it was St. Louis. New York, yeah. So it wasn't the first time even the United States had it, but it was in Europe. They had it other places in Europe. Let's not go crazy. This is the 1800s. They didn't do it in some places, but they would maybe do it today. They're like, Brazil,
they mostly did it in the U.S. and Europe. That's pretty much it.
They're like, China.
Places where if it was in the summer, they'd pass no sunscreen. That's usually where
they're going to do that. A lot of white people going. But I think the most famous one before this one we're trying to talk about today was the World's Fair in Paris, which was beforehand, what is our
1889.
Example, 89, which is why they built the Eiffel Tower. It was a World's Fair expo, a centerpiece for France in Paris. We're going to hold it in Paris. This crazy architect's going to build this awesome structure, and we're going to unveil it at the World's Fair. And that's the Eiffel Tower, one of the most famous structures in the world, if not the most famous, and it's still up today. That's a World's Fair decoration that just keeps on giving.
And it's not that often for, usually they tear everything down because it's only meant to be temporary. They
Yeah, it's
use,
temporary
the strongest
structures.
stuff to build the structures, but obviously they were saying, well, we can't put this giant thing up and take it down a couple months after it goes up. Let's build it right and have it up there forever.
Exactly. And the one at Paris was the first time that they had a World's Fair after the adoption of electricity in the world. And there was some electrical elements to that Paris World's Fair. They had little expos and go, oh, look at this. This is electricity, the magical thing we're going to all get into. And people were like, oh, I don't know about that, witchcraft. But the World's Fair in Chicago, 1893, was the first time it was an all-electric World's Fair. And it is basically the only thing I knew about it before research is that the World's Fair in Chicago was the light up the world. It was like going from here to like fucking Blade Runner or like Mass Effect. Like you go full sci-fi. People are like, what the fuck's going on here? It's all in the middle of the night. Everything's as bright as the sun. There's all kinds of colors and crazy shit. People were freaking out. It was the electric city.
It's crazy. And a lot of people at that time in 1893 really were still using candles. I mean, not necessarily in Chicago. Because
most everybody.
The height of the Industrial Revolution was 1893 or early 1900s. But so you didn't even see a light bulb. And there was 20 million or 30 million attendees of the Chicago one who came from all over the world, who A lot of them,
Yes.
like I said, didn't even see what a light bulb looked like.
Thomas Edison was there to show off his new invention called the light bulb. That's how early on in electricity the show was. People had never seen it.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like you're saying at the Paris one, there was plenty of lights around, but for the Chicago one, when everyone got there for opening day or opening night, all the lights were off. And might have to double check the president.
Grover Cleveland.
Grover Cleveland. I almost said Calvin Coolidge. I knew it didn't sound right. He was the one to flip the switch, and all the lights went on all at once, and everyone saw it turn on at the same time.
Oh my god, what a wonderful moment that must have been. And the pressure on those poor tech guys would be like, holy shit, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Woo. Imagine you're lighting a Christmas tree and one of the light bulbs goes out. That times a million.
Yeah, plus also it would probably catch, the buildings on fire.
Oh yeah, it would have been a complete disaster. And it would have been like two years and whatever, however many
fire.
$1 million. Yeah, the second Chicago fire. Right after the last one.
And a big part of it being in Chicago was they wanted to show that they could rebuild something after the fire because the fire took down so much of it. So the Chicago
Yeah, do you guys want to bring
Fair
up that
was
aspect
like,
of it?
hey,
Because
we're
I think it was 20 years before this World's Fair was the Great Chicago Fire that burned down, 70% of all the major structures in the city. And they had to rebuild the whole city. And only 20 years after that, they won the bid for the World's Fair. I mean, what a fucking comeback story there.
Beautiful story. One of my favorite stories of all time.
It's a good one. Yeah, and actually, when they were rebuilding the city, they made these new ordinances to have more fireproof buildings. And
Makes
people
sense.
were fighting back because they didn't want to pay the money to get it done. And there was a small fire 3 years later, and they were like, okay, yeah, let's do fireproof
Come on.
buildings.
How many more fires do we need before we fucking take this shit seriously? God damn. You would think that one of the most famous fires in world history would be enough, but no, you always need one more.
Yep.
Just to really drive the point home. But yeah, I was looking it up that the population at Chicago at the time of the World's Fair was around 1 million. I think it was a little over 1 million people. But before that, about 100 years before that, it was only 50,000 people. So within 100 years, it went from what we consider a large town to Chicago, the host of the World's Fair, the fucking white city and all that shit. I think that was pretty impressive in that such a short amount of time. And in between then, the fucking city burned down. So they really fought hard here in Chicago to come back from this shit. I gotta respect that.
Gotta respect that. Love that.
And I do. And I do. So do you want to start getting into the subject matter of today's pod, which is that particular World's Fair after they're done building it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
I do.
Let's
And actually, I want to start off with something because you already mentioned Thomas Edison and his light bulbs. Mm-hmm. But he did not supply power to the World's Fair.
He did not. Another person did it from our previous podcast.
So Nikola Tesla had the contract to power the World's Fair.
Yeah, he gave his AC technology to Westinghouse.
To Westinghouse, which is also still a company today.
Yeah.
And they powered
So is Tesla.
They yes, and they're same exact company too. It's been around for that long.
Wow.
But no, it was with Tesla's help that if it weren't for him, Westinghouse wouldn't have got it, Tesla wouldn't have got it, and Edison would have had the whole thing.
And it would have
Edison,
sucked.
as we've talked about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Westinghouse
I think that was cool.
underbid Edison by, I think he wanted $1 per lamp or something crazy. And Westinghouse won the bid for 70 cents a lamp.
70 cents a lamp, plus AC current instead of
how it's
DC
done.
current.
Much, much better.
Tesla strikes again on this podcast. So you could say a lot of this, the spectacle was definitely attributed to, I guess, Westinghouse's money, but I'd say
Elon
Tesla's
Musk.
brain. Yeah, and then by proxy, Elon Musk in the future.
Yes.
The great-great-grandson of Nikola Tesla, who he bought an emerald mine when he died. It's all true. You guys can look that up. But yeah, I thought, you said part of the process, like Dom said, they built up this whole, Epcot-style, fairgrounds, which was multiple acres, but a lot of these structures were built out of kind of like fucking paper mache. I mean, not really, but it was like the Disney World stuff where they built up a fake.
It was like
castle.
the stone equivalent of paper mache, basically.
Yeah, it's just kind of slapped together. It's supposed to last a year, maybe. It's not a permanent structure, but it looks great, and you can get it up fast, which they needed to do, and which actually earned its name for the World Fair that year, the White City, because it had all these grand, alabaster towers that were coming up from the horizon that hadn't been there even 2 years earlier. It's like a whole new part of Chicago spread up out of nowhere. and actually attributed this to the guy who wrote The Wizard of Oz, who was there at the time in Chicago, that he based the idea of the Emerald City of Oz off of this white city in Chicago, to be like, wow, can you imagine such a magical place like this, but except green? And then now we have Dorothy. I thought that was cool.
You say Wizard of Oz. So I was just in San Diego at the Hotel del Coronado, and
dude, I was gonna ask you if that was the Coronado. When you took the picture outside, I was like, is that the Grand Floridian or the Coronado? Because that roof is so iconic. So it was the Coronado.
Iconic. Yeah. So it's the Coronado, and they took them down, but the original, they were super cool. It was called the Star Room or the something room, but the original light fixtures in the ballroom that I was at, that Richard Nixon gave a speech in, and so did Charles Lindbergh after he landed his transatlantic journey.
Yeehaw!
The writer of The Wizard of Oz designed all the light fixtures in there.
No shit.
Cool.
Oh, it all ties in.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
But that's very cool.
The guy had vision, even if it was just copying out the White City in Chicago there.
That's right. Someone's got to do it.
I mean, and when I was looking into this, I had heard it is called the White City, and I really just thought that was the population, but now I realize it's actually the structures.
Yeah, because they and it also one of the first times the word whitewashing was used, because as they're building these things, they're not white, but they developed one of the first forms of spray paint to quickly paint everything white.
Really? You could white it up.
It was a white spraying paint. I'm gonna call it can of spray paint or something, but yeah, one of the first devices used to spray paint.
I know a lot of prominent politicians who would just really pop a boner at that very idea of having one of those things at their house in case anyone shows up. Hold on real quick before you go in. Yeah. All right, now you can come in.
Well, it's also known as invisibility paint too. When we used to tech our cars at some of our funny events, like 24 Hours of Lemons, we had nice shit, and you just spray paint it black.
so it wouldn't look like it's
yeah, if you got Bilstein coilovers or whatever it is, they're yellow and blue, and all these fun things.
They look all nice.
All over them. You just buy the shittiest spray paint. You spray paint them black, and you go, no, they're stock. They're black.
That's great. That's fucking great. Oh, the tricks of the trade here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just paint it over. You'll be good. So this fair in 1893 started in May, and these tend to run for 6 months. Due to
6 months too, a long time that this shit was running. It would take over your city for half a year. That's even longer than the Olympics for a good amount.
Sure is. So 6 months from May to October. Yeah. And
that's how you bring in 23 million people in the year 1893, which is no small feat. Even today, it's not a small amount of people. But then, are you kidding me? That's like fucking half the world's population. I'm exaggerating, but still, they were not working with
so you
8 billion people.
Exact number.
Oh yeah,
just
cool.
Think about how fucking bored you must have been back then. Honestly, there's.
Yeah, but you think all the bored people are going to the World's Fair? Maybe people in the Chicagoland
area.
The
people that are bored don't have the money to go to the
World's Fair. Fucking rich, dude. Yeah, people who are traveling to Chicago from around the world were what you consider now multi-millionaires. I mean, you couldn't have money.
Million people, not all of them could have been the richest people. They might have just said,
no, you're right.
No, the people that lived in Chicago, they were the poor people that went.
Yeah, I'm sure people traveled for all over the USA, Canada, but most of the international crowd, I think, were fucking rich, or they worked for rich people that needed to run the fair events and all that stuff. But of course, there was people from all over.
Or how they got here, and they sailed replicas of the Mina, and Santa Maria.
Pinta and Santa Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also sailed the Viking longship
because this was the 400th anniversary of Christopher H. Columbus's.
He sailed the Ocean Blue.
Landing in 1492.
1492.
Well,
so 1893 is the World's Fair. Yeah.
Hell yeah. But also what Dom said, too, they actually sailed a Viking longship.
It took them a year to get it over there.
Yeah. Well, it took a lot of planning. But they sailed a Viking longship all the way from Europe to the World's Fair. I mean, come on. That's fucking sick.
Dude, they did that recently, too. Before COVID, they sailed a Viking longship from Norway to Salem, and I went on it.
That's awesome as well, but this happened, cool. 100-plus years ago, which is even more impressive to me.
Yeah. Well, also, it's nothing. That happened 1893, so that's 40, 50 years after they first discovered Viking settlements in Scandinavia. Because they didn't start excavating stuff like that until the mid-1800s.
Damn.
But they, discovered
it. It was like look at this history we just found.
Yeah, crazy town. Crazy stuff. So,
what was going on?
People were coming by boat, by walking, by horse-drawn carriage. not by
Train.
automobiles.
By foot, by
By
train.
foot, and also by electric moving platforms inside the Chicago's World Fair. Joe, you want to talk about that? I know you seem like you know what you're talking about.
I did not. I thought you were going to talk about it.
Before you talk about the electric thing you're about to say, that reminded me. One of the reasons why they brought these boats is because they made all these artificial canals going through Chicago and based it off of Venice.
Yeah.
And they had the Phoenician
They had,
style
the
gondolas
gondolas.
to get you around.
Yeah.
Yes, and they also had some brand new electric boats
Ooh,
that they were using to transport
spooky.
people around the fairgrounds.
Can you imagine this? Like 1893, you don't even know.
Yeah.
The most technologically advanced thing you've ever seen is a fucking fork, and you're going
Yeah.
there and there's electric boats. Electric boats and escalators that are horizontal, like the airport ones. Like they're moving sidewalks.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
movers, they call
Moving
them.
sidewalks.
Moving sidewalks.
Very first
they
ones.
Look like, yeah, they're moving and they're electric. Then you get electric boats, and then they also had like a train that went around too that was also electric.
So cool. I mean, I want to go. It just
I
sounds
wanna
like
go
so much
so
fun.
Bad. This sounds like the funnest goddamn thing ever.
Yeah.
And I've talked about
But
this
you imagine,
before.
imagine getting on an electric boat though. At the time, it must be like if getting on like a fucking canoe with like a blue box and be like, "This is a fusion powered boat." I'd be like, "I don't know about this." Like it must be kind of nerve-wracking. You're like, "I don't even know what this is." Like magic. It must be kind of freaky, you know? Be like, "I don't know. Let's go. Let's see what happens."
Not to
If I
mention,
get
if
on
the thing ever sank, I don't think it was like very well insulated. You'd
Definitely
probably,
not.
You know,
It's not made to ever go in the
die.
Well,
You'd be going belly up.
There is a theory out there because we mentioned that Nikola Tesla was a big part of this whole thing. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, he was responsible for most of the electrical work there because
So
of his
yeah, a
invention.
lot of electricity, and you've got more electricity in this World's Fair right now than the entire city of New York in Manhattan is going on.
Yeah,
That's how much.
I
Electricity
mean,
is
you could
happening.
probably weigh it against the entire electric grid of the United States at the time because most places were not electrified yet, and this was a concerted effort to make it electric. So I say there's probably more electric infrastructure during this World's Fair than, if you exclude New York, than the entire United States combined. I mean, it's not that crazy of a thought at the time.
Yeah, it's not that great thought. So how are they getting all this electricity? Is my question. So
I don't know, Dylan. Why don't you
thoughts?
tell me that what YouTube
talk
video
about
you watched that told you the answer?
Absolutely. So Nikola Tesla was responsible for bringing electricity from like a nearby dam or something like that. But that dam was still 50 or 60 miles away, so that's running a lot of wires and this, that, and the other thing. Then you get to charge
Sure.
all those gondolas, you get to charge the trains, you get to charge. The boats you definitely have to charge. The walkway and the trains, obviously, we understand how those work and that type of stuff. Plus all the 500,000 light bulbs or something that's there.
Yeah.
And
And there's a pretty large thing they have to power too. We might talk about later. that takes a lot of
Yes.
energy to run that
the
thing.
goddess of light. Is that what I'm
Naturally.
Okay. Well, there's a statue in the middle that's like a obelisk-looking thing with this gold lady on the top.
Yeah,
called
I heard that
Goddess of
statue was
Light.
called the Republic.
Well, probably, but the lady on top is she has a name, Goddess of Light.
That's
And
cool.
They're thinking that maybe this was the first, like Tesla wireless energy production that he tried in Long Island
like,
before he died, because he can hide it in there.
transmitted
perfectly,
energy.
gold on top. So all the electronic things are getting wireless energy for the first time before they killed him for this.
Damn.
But it was a good first concept that instead of having hydroelectric power or a bunch of generators. Did you didn't hear anything about the generators? No one's talking about those.
No, they didn't have generators. I
Yeah.
don't think really at the time.
Well,
Not the ones we
you had an internal
described.
combustion engine existed, sort of, but no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
A
their
little bit.
power plants.
Everything mostly was still steam powered. You could have
Yeah,
steam-powered
it was like
generator.
power plants. Yeah, it didn't really have like diesel generators and stuff like that.
Right.
But no, I hear what you're saying for sure. But obviously, one of the big parts of it, the wireless electricity, because they can make it work. They can make it work today with our technology. They can recreate Tesla's thing. But the whole thing about it is it's super low energy. It takes a lot of energy because the amount of space it has to travel, it's losing energy the whole time. So
Totally.
in order to light one light bulb like 100 feet away, it takes like 10 times the voltage you need to light like a regular light bulb. So
I get it.
it takes a high energy demand. So the only reason I can see them doing it wirelessly is because they couldn't get the wires to the spot. Like you're saying, like if it's in the middle of the fountain, it might be easier to do like wireless, electricity to kind of like light the thing up. But besides that, it wouldn't be more efficient than using a power station. It would actually be much, much more taxing to light one light bulb in the time that there's no power stations. So if anything, it seems like a huge fucking waste of energy to make it wireless when you could just use it wired. You have so many lights already. It's not magic.
Unless there's
it's real science.
We don't know that was in Nikola Tesla's hotel room that he got killed in or died in when they
maybe it's one of his secret documents he had in that.
Stole all the secret documents.
Maybe it's in there.
Possibility there that this was really what it was, and they were hiding it. And
I won't rule it out.
Yeah, so that's what I think. So we're back to May, beautiful May in Chicago.
It's gonna be May.
Anymore. We picked May because it's not as cold. It's a good time for people to come in.
In Chicago, yeah, you better be fucking at least spring. No one wants to go there in the winter.
So no, imagine that.
You're gonna travel 3 months on a.
Shit. Sorry.
Oh no, nothing. You're gonna travel 3 months on a fucking ship from Japan just to show up and freeze your balls off for a week. Forget about it.
Why not freeze your balls off on the trip over?
Why not?
I'm sure they did.
The open ocean, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too. You got 2 years to build this shit, and you're basically building ancient Rome. If you look at this, the giant, beautiful, Washington Monument, Lake Square, right there. What are we calling that?
The National Mall kind of looking thing.
National Mall situation where Martin Luther King gave.
And like Dom said, they had all these canals. It was very like Greco-Roman architecture, like harkening back to the age of discovery and democracy in the ancient world.
Yeah, and that fair actually caused a huge uptick in that style of architecture.
Wow.
Makes sense.
That's why a lot of the early 1900s stuff is so European, is because of the 93 World Fair. Everyone was like, "Oh, that stuff looks great. Why did we stop building like that?"
Yeah. It lasts forever. It's cool. And why? But here's what I'm getting at here is that you got 2 years to build this, and you've got winter going from like November to early April in Chicago back then, before global warming. So now you've got all this shit you got to build in the snow. That sounds really hard, doesn't it?
Got to be a major pain in the ass, especially in 1893.
Especially in 1893, moving all these things.
Well, unless Nikola Tesla had some off the records electric snow melters that.
Yeah,
he had the hot suits that you wear when you go to the Arctic. Yeah.
Yeah, and you ran hot water under the ground so no snow melted. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm not saying it did.
Well, you got to remember at the time everyone was still smoking, so you had a little bit of fire around all the time, just kind of warm you up a little bit when what ails you.
Definitely.
So you're saying that's why the Earth is getting colder now in certain areas, because less people are smoking, more people are vaping, so it's less flames.
I'm saying if everyone was vaping, there wouldn't have been a Chicago fire. Am I being any more clear than I can be here?
Also, there's a chance that if everyone was vaping, there wouldn't have been a Chicago World Fair, because that stuff's gay.
If everyone was vaping, America wouldn't be a superpower right now. Let's put it that way. One last thing I'll say about that. Thomas Edison definitely vaped. Nikola Tesla ripped butts. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah,
rolled his own.
Yeah, if you're going to go based off personality, no question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but the whole thing was Thomas Edison used to vape DC vape, so his vape would blow up like a fucking Samsung Galaxy in an airplane.
Yeah, but at least his was passion fruit.
Because he had passion for the craft.
Passion for other people's crafts.
Tesla just did straight tobacco. He was like, I can't have time for the flavors.
He ate it with a fork and a knife.
I'm from Eastern Europe. I just take it right to the face, the harshest I can get it.
Davidoffs are what they call those now. It's the newer version of tobacco to the face. Davidoff
really?
is like is their fucking Marlboro Red in Europe.
I didn't know that.
Yep. It is.
Who said this podcast isn't educational?
Smoked a few Davidoffs in my time.
I should hope so.
They rip.
Rip hard.
They rip hard.
Fuck yeah! So that'll bring us to the 1893 World's Fair, where I think we should talk about some of the things that were unveiled at this World's Fair, because the list, some of this stuff is still with us today.
Let's do the list. Let's go.
Starting out with Wrigley's gum. It wasn't just technology having to do with machines. It was the first time that Wrigley's gum was introduced to the world. I'm talking about Double Mint. I'm talking about Juicy Fruit. I'm talking about the worst tasting gum that exists now. It was the first one to do it. They're still really pumping through it.
It just doesn't.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I went up and said it.
It's not that great.
That's why I went out and said it. It's good versus nothing.
Juicy fruit is great for like
5
a little while.
Yeah, I'm not denying that.
We've had 100 years of gum technology.
I can a piece of Orbitz. I can chew a piece of Orbitz for 4 hours. Give me some Wrigley gum. About 10 minutes, I'm spitting that thing out.
I'm not
It's
denying
done.
that, but definitely.
But it costs like 10 cents to get it in now. So I guess then they're probably just giving it out. But yeah, Wrigley's
you can
gum.
still buy like the 5-stick pack for 25 cents.
Yeah, it's amazing. So they're still
Or
doing it.
it's like 30 cents an hour, something like that, but it's still
Actually
good.
work.
But, you know, the
like,
economy.
Actually, I respect that though, because now every company just like wants to be like, how are we growing and developing? I don't think they give a shit.
Oh, Wrigley's is like, just change the price by 5 cents every half century. We're good. We're in
good to
business.
go. People will still
Yep.
buy for some
Just like
reason.
Arizona
Someone's
iced tea.
doing it.
Brand loyalty. Arizona iced tea, very similar thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing, food related, that was debuted at the 1893 Chicago World Fair. It was Cracker Jacks.
I don't care if I ever get back. The first Cracker Jack.
Though they did not gain popularity until that baseball song was written in 1908.
Of course. Can you imagine having a song that famous, and every time they go, like every halftime of a football game, root for McDonald's. People would just be eating McDonald's. Like, it's a great advertisement.
Nonstop.
Buy me some peanuts and rolled gold pretzels. I don't care if I ever get wetzeled. I mean, that's just free advertisement for them. That must have been great.
Also, you guys are probably wondering this one, but the German firm Krupp had a pavilion of artillery, which they cost $1 million to stage, where they introduced their coastal gun that was 42 centimeters in bore. Everyone was wondering about
Holy
things
shit! How about that?
Yeah.
If there's any wars coming up, keep this in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
In about 10 years, that's going to be very important.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, just like Wrigley's gum, it it was driven by 900 pounds
Doesn't go
of
up in
brown
price.
powder and claimed to be able to penetrate at 2,200 yards.
Good lord.
Nicknamed the Thunderer.
The Thunderer. That's a great name.
Thunderer.
That's so much better than like the Verstappen Verstappen in 2070.
Exactly.
The Thunderer. Like, that really drives the point home.
Oh,
From 2,200 yards
this
away.
gets even funnier. Yeah, besides the muzzle coffers.
Yeah, just the worst.
Yeah.
Longest person's name.
So it had an advertised range of 15 miles, and on this occasion, John Schofield declared the Thunderer.
Of the Schofield revolver fame?
I don't know, but probably.
Or is he a gun manufacturer? I mean, Dom, you played Red Dead. The Schofield revolver. It's like as famous as the
Yes,
Winchester
but
repeater.
the thing about Red Dead 2 is they take real guns, and with the exception of like the Springfields in it, but like most of the
And the
revolvers
Winchester
stuff,
and the Carcano
are
rifle.
renamed.
Those are all real.
Yeah, the
rifle
Winchester
names.
isn't. Well, the Winchester's in Red Dead 1. Red Dead 2 doesn't have the Winchester. They
Oh,
have
well,
made up
sorry.
names like the Lancaster and the Litchfield repeater. But
Oh, okay.
a lot of those guns in Red Dead 2 are models of real guns. But I don't know if it was for legal reasons or not. They had to change the names.
Oh, I feel like the
Grand Theft Auto with
Schofield
cars.
revolver might be
like
real,
in
though.
Grand Theft Auto, they renamed like all the cars other names, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
so John
Sorry,
Schofield,
go ahead,
of
Dylan.
possibly the gun manufacturer, declared the Thunderer the greatest peacemaker in the world. And
Peacemaker.
Oh,
Classic
I'm sure.
wartime
I'm
guy.
sure.
And now I'm convinced he's the gun
Sounds like
manufacturer.
he's a
Who would
good
call
guy.
that thing a peacemaker? It should be called the Warbringer. Total war.
And so you'll like this, Joe. So the Thunderer was the precursor. We're getting right back to what we were talking about earlier, to the company's War I howitzer called the Dick Bertha.
The Dick Bertha howitzer.
Exactly. So that's that was really everyone was all over this. Just like
Really,
Wrigley's
really
How
Gum.
could you not get all
Yeah.
over that thing? You know, at the time especially.
Just
Good
like
God.
Wrigley's Gum, this was also unveiled.
Good googly moogly. And around the same
Gross.
vein, they introduced to the world for the first time the sewing machine, the electric sewing machine. You don't have to press the pedal with your foot anymore. Just turn it on and off you go. The power of electricity. Imagine how many housewives saved their ankles with this new invention.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those foot pedaled ones. Well, I mean, I have.
It looks
one.
easy for like a minute, but try to pump it for like
It's
20
even
minutes.
without the belt going to the sewing machine, because it has an arm that's offset like that, so you're only using basically half of the pump it doubles what it's doing.
Yeah.
When you try to stop it, it has the momentum. It just keeps going. You're like trying to get your feet off of it.
Oh, damn.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that's pretty
Wow.
nuts. So yeah, I already mentioned this, but it's worth saying. Along the banks of the lake, people who were going to the casino that was there were taking.
I love how they brought a casino there. I mean, they knew how to party. You know, it's
naturally.
like,
Hell was up.
Well, it was before gambling was deemed illegal in the United States, I believe.
So back to a little side topic here is that people back then knew what was up for some reason. It was like they were a different class of people than we were doing this.
I think it depends on the circumstance, though, right?
Oh, I think
fucking good anymore. Just saying.
I think they do. I think the difference back then was only the wealthy people, or in these special scenarios, could they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now it's such everyday thing to us; it doesn't seem as exciting.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, but like nothing. You're right. But it's just so.
I'm always hesitant when people say, "Oh, it used to be so much better back then." It's like, yeah, well, compared to what? You know. Well, go ahead, Dylan. I'll shit on your point after you're done instead of interrupting you.
You're right, but just like a production like this that's so fucking high class and good is.
Yeah.
What's our options now? You know, like this is so good. It's insane.
It feels like they were more advertising for future things rather than trying to milk money at the day. Where if they did this nowadays, they'd be trying to get money out of everybody immediately and try to recoup their losses instead of saying 10 years from now it's going to make our country wealthy. They want to be wealthy yesterday because their investors want their money tomorrow. So I get what you're saying. Like nowadays they'd never do this shit because they'd be like, how are we going to milk money out of everybody? They can just walk around and see all these lights. Who's going to pay for these lights?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So nowadays they do these things, and there's tens of thousands of them broken up into small bits and pieces. Like I'm at all the healthcare ones in the world. I'm always
there's conventions everywhere. But there's only one.
Healthcare, 10 years ahead of technologies in healthcare. They do this with cars. They do it with aviation. They do it with all these things. It's not just like one big fucking thing. So, But it's just, it's not for everybody. I mean, I'm going to the healthcare ones. No one gives a fuck about that. You know, like, sure, it's cool, but this is just, it's for the people. And God, is it fun to think about having a cocktail there. But anyway, so the other thing that was unveiled was the moving walkway, which was designed by Joseph Lyman Silsby. And it was called the Great Wharf Moving Sidewalk. And it allowed people to walk along or ride in seats. You take a seat.
Just crazy.
You take a fucking seat on that thing. Like, sit down.
It's so crazy. It's like the most basic form of a carnival ride. It's like, look, it moves you around,
straight
but on a flat surface.
It sounds kind of fun, actually.
I mean, if you've never been...
Well, I'm sure you could just go to the airport, get on one, and sit down. It'd probably do the same thing for you.
Yeah, but now we're used to them. Imagine if you never saw one before. I remember being a kid and my mom being like, you've been on escalators before. We're like, yeah, but this is different. It's flat. But imagine there's no escalators, no elevators, nothing that you've ever been on, and you step on this thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm flying. It probably went like 2 miles an hour, too.
They did have elevators back then, though.
Right, but I would say that normal people wouldn't really go on them that much.
More impressive is that no one got sucked into that thing.
Well,
yeah, I'm sure there's no safety features at all. It's just like an engine pushing
those
like
big giant gowns and stuff. Like,
oh yeah. You know how much force that thing has to be to move 20 people at the time. Like that thing is just a big engine. If you get caught up in that thing,
picture it's like long as fuck. And
yeah, I wanted to. I didn't want to say I didn't want to say 100 because I didn't want to be wrong. But yeah, there you go.
It looks like it's that long. And well as gowns and stuff that gets sucked in. That thing.
There's no safety features on any of this stuff. It's all just built to not catch on fire because of the Chicago thing. But besides that, it's like, hey, if you want to fuck around with the sewing machine and it just eats your hand up, that's too bad. And there's no lawyers to sue at the time. The litigation is not that big, so it's like, hey, guess you got fucked up at the World's Fair. Nice story to tell your kids with your one hand.
Yeah, and there's probably no really even any records of injuries happening at the World Fair because they were like, don't care. Don't.
I know there's very little records of murders happening. We might get into that later.
Yes, a little bit later.
The record keeping is not 100%. And there's like I said, there's the population. In those 6 months was, if you combine it all together, was 20 times the amount it would normally be. So you have to imagine a couple people got lost in the fervor, and they had to build so many new buildings at the time that like all these building permits and all these people and all the police officers and a lot of shit got off track real fast. I imagine as far as keeping track. Hey, of
people get lost today. Earlier this week, Team Cuba left from the World Baseball Classic. and one of their bullpen catchers didn't get on the plane back to Cuba. He defected to America. First time it's ever happened during the World Baseball Classic.
Hey, way to take advantage.
Nice.
If their baseball players don't even get paid that much, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was just the bullpen catcher, so he's not really missing out on much if he can't find work here anyways, because how much do you get paid to catch in the bullpen? You don't actually have a very important job.
It's too bad he needs a green card. He'd probably be a nasty catcher for a minor league team. If you're on the World Classic team, you're probably nasty.
Yeah, that's a good point. What else did we get
But I think we should...
debuted at the World's Fair? I want to know.
I got one. Unless...
I was going to say, I think that Dom should talk about the biggest thing that debuted, and I'm talking about quite literally as well as metaphorically.
Yes.
It was America's answer to the Eiffel Tower that had happened in the last World Fair. They go, all right, France, we'll do you one better.
Before I tell everyone what this incredible invention is, I want to do a quick honorable mention to something that was not invented at the Chicago World Fair. It didn't get its famous blue ribbon there, but that year in 1893,
I almost forgot this one.
It was ranked best beer at the Chicago World Fair.
Look at that.
Best beer at the World's Fair, ranked number 1, was Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is still a new hotshot at the scene at the time. It had been around for long before that, but I mean, this is when it really, like you're talking about Cracker Jacks. It's your world stage, baby. It's the World Fair. PBR is like, here we go. We won't be called PBR for another 100 years. We're still at the Blue Ribbon, Pabst Blue Ribbon, America's number 1 beer.
Yep. But one thing you could do while enjoying your PBRs at the time was
And Cracker
I'm on
Jacks.
the wrong side of my notes here.
And your juicy fruit.
It was, as Joe said, to compete with the Eiffel Tower. They said, I want to out-Eiffel the Eiffel. And the man who set out to make that happen was one Daniel Burnham. He, it was his. He was the one we need to do something better than what France did in 1889. Something bigger than the Eiffel Tower.
You can't let the France
and that
outdo us.
idea came from a man called George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., who was originally hired just to inspect the steelwork that was going on through building the fair. And he went to Burnham with this plan, and he was like, no, you can't do it. He goes, no, I'll pay my own money, I'll run my own tests, make sure it's safe. And he did, and it worked. And Daniel Burnham gave him the okay, and that was, of course, the Ferris wheel.
The George Washington Gale Ferris wheel.
Ferris wheel.
Shortened to Ferris wheel.
A large wheel on a rotating axis that can carry passengers in a circle.
So not only was this the first Ferris wheel in the history of the planet, it also was fucking enormous. It held like a couple hundred people, right? It wasn't just like the one at Six Flags is like 20 feet tall. It's even bigger than the one at the fair. It's like, this thing was massive. It was supposed to be the Eiffel Tower combating.
It was 264 feet tall.
Ew.
It had 36 carousels, and each carousel could hold 60 people.
Fuck you. Getting up there, I would be shitting my pants. And it's the first one ever. We're talking about
First one ever. And
before.
unlike a lot of the technology getting unveiled, this was not electric. This was a steam-powered Ferris wheel, because they couldn't take this new technology and go, let's do this, because this has also never been done.
Yeah.
And so they charged riders 50 cents to get on, and the Ferris wheel made $1.4 million in the 6 months that the Chicago World Fair was open.
Imagine how much money that is at the time for inflation. Good God.
You'd be fucking nuts to get on that thing. I wouldn't get on one now. So each carousel...
Are you kidding me?
Gondola held 60 people? Like each box?
Yeah,
so
boxes.
36 times 60, that's how many people would ride it at once.
What the
It's fucking crazy.
Someone do the math.
Not me. You can do it at home, folks.
Crammed in there like a sardine can, and then it goes. It's fucking insane.
No, Joe, you're gonna have to put up a picture during this.
Oh, I'll definitely have pictures.
Quite spacious. They are big.
No, that's
the
like
thing is massive.
Each thing is a school bus.
Yeah,
of people going around.
Huge.
20 stories high.
And how many times do you see it where so that's like if the Wright brothers' first plane was a Boeing 747.
Yeah,
like, look, we did it.
Yeah, we did it as big as it's ever going to be done.
Yeah, literally. Like, their first plane was the Wright Flyer, but it was a Antonov 225, the one that just blew up in Ukraine. Like, they're like, it's that big, but it's old.
It's steam powered.
Yeah, it's steam powered.
Steam powered.
Yeah.
That's so funny too. He's like, I'm gonna test all the safety stuff, make sure the steel works. It's like, who cares about the steel? What the hell is this thing? I feel like any number of things could have gone wrong with this.
Yeah.
Well,
The steel could be just fine, and everything else could be fucky.
Dude, there's not even a like the ship that spins around like this at Six Flags is terrifying. That doesn't even hold 60 people. Imagine like,
and it goes like 10 feet up. This thing is 200 feet in the air.
Terrifying and heavy as fuck. Imagine how heavy this thing is. And
imagine how heavy this fucking thing is.
It's insane.
There's no aluminum at all. It's all just fucking steel,
solid steel.
Yeah, imagine the bearings and everything and like.
How big the shaft has to be through the middle is probably like 6 feet tall. Just the shaft going through the middle to support it all.
Oh yeah. You think about like the premiere of steelwork innovation and technology that came probably started somewhat a decade after, but the Titanic, like what that looked like, and that was 20 or 30 years in the future from when this Ferris wheel was. Right. Make something that strong and that good and that safe then? Nuts.
And it never sank.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That Ferris.
And as far as I know, no one actually got killed from it at the World's Fair. Like it didn't actually fuck up. It actually worked. Like it was a success.
That's insane.
Pretty good.
Now, do we want to talk about some of the not quite the where Joe's really dying to talk about? There were some racial issues with the 1893 Chicago World Fair.
Bullshit. There's no way in Chicago, in the quote unquote white city during the World's Fair that there was any racial issues. I do recall hearing something about a constituent of African American folks that wanted to show off the new inventions to the African American community because the Civil War ended 30 years prior, around maybe 40. Like it's pretty fresh. You could have been born in the Civil War. You'd only be 40 years old right now, since it happened.
30,
so like, I can see how people.
Ended the 60s.
30.
Yeah, 30. Right? Yeah. So it was 63, something like that. Yeah. So I mean, literally, we could have been born in the Civil War. We'd be this old now, and that'd be how far away from the Civil War. And like, but you're telling me there's racial problems, Dom? Because I don't know what
they were. Yeah, they were really trying to get a lot of African American inventors in there to show what they could do.
You're telling me they couldn't bring one jar of peanut butter to the fucking World Fair?
Nope.
Okay, I'm obviously kidding. There's way more shit than that they invented. There's way more shit. It's pretty impressive too, especially with all the hindrance they had on them, of course.
Yes. But yeah, so there weren't allowed to be any booths run by African American or Native American people.
Racist.
There were a few ways people were able to work their way in, like Frederick Douglass did by being basically like the
famous
diplomat for Haiti.
Talk
at the Haiti booth, and he used his time there to talk about racism in America. People got pissed at him.
Good for him.
To the point where someone argued, shouted out at him in the crowd, and he took his notes and threw them up and ragged on the guy for 20 minutes off the top of his head.
That guy's the shit. We should do a podcast on Frederick Douglass, dude. That guy's fucking awesome.
There were some. What was it? There were
hate
some
crime?
like native booths that were allowed, but they were in the entertainment district.
Yeah, let's not take it too seriously. Do a rain dance.
It was used as a. It was basically a people zoo. It's like you can see how those barbarians live.
Wow.
And people would just walk around and look at them and like toss pennies at them and stuff.
That's fucked.
Definitely fucked. But can we expect anything less from America in the late 1800s? I mean, come on.
No.
It's the way it is. I'm not forgiving them for it, but it's understandable for the time. But yeah. And on that slightly depressing note, I think we should take our first commercial break till we get to what actually went down at the World's Fair. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get on the Ferris wheel because it's...
Also, Vienna sausage is starting.
It's on some books this year. Look at this here. We getting mad money on computer this year. We ain't new to this. It's ludicrous how far that we got. We still record on the block. Where Jones, y'all must have forgot. The only handout that I'm taking is a coupon. Get your coupon. So how to...
I shivered me timbers. I found myself a little spider on the side of the thing. And when I brushed it off, it's running down here, you little spider. You better go back in the case. You get adrenaline, like me next. Good golly, Miss Molly, it's full of cons.
It's just cons.
I think it's a cans. Oh my god!
There was no big, it was full of
Are you
cans.
sure?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Oh my god!
Guys, and well, fuck. Sorry, I have something blocking my screen, so I can't fucking see it.
You're good. Now you can go.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, dogs and cats, we're back from the Dylan Joe Based Podcast with Dom and Joe and Dylan. World's Fair. Thanks for letting us speak. Joe, you got something to say, but Dom also has something on his plate, right?
Yeah, like it's a pretty important thing I have on my plate here. It's actually not that important because I've already said everything that was
Oh,
written here.
okay. Okay, so we're good. Your plate's clean then.
But that's everything. Well, it's definitely not
You
clean.
finished your
But
vegetables?
it is
But
done.
there's nothing left on the plate. You're...
I finished my Cracker Jacks.
I don't care if you ever come back on this podcast.
Yep. All right, Joe, what's on your plate?
On my plate? Well, I already kind of alluded to the idea that there's just a crazy time of expansion in Chicago. They had to build, 100 buildings in 5 years leading up to this whole thing. I mean, I'm not just talking about the papier-mâché rock ones they did for the thing. I'm talking about rebuilding Chicago in general. And it might have been something mixed up in the little bag there. Because someone was allowed to build a murder castle in the middle of Chicago, and no one fucking noticed. Which you think you'd notice. If someone builds a murder castle in a major city, I mean, obviously there's still the super rich people today that can build, murder mansions, but they have to be much more sneaky about it. And they have to be kind of like...
Is what the rich people call it now.
Huh?
Like Jeffrey Epstein Island, it's now...
Oh, yeah, you have to do it on an island. Yeah, you can't just do it in the middle of a city. You have to be kind of sneakier about it and all stuff like that. Yeah. But the man I want to talk about built one in the middle of the Chicago city during this time. And he more than got away with it. I'm talking, of course...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking, of course, about who's dubbed America's first serial killer. I don't know if that's true, because you can tell by this story, the cops weren't really on top of shit, at all. So there could have been multiple serial killers before this. This is the first one that was caught and famous. And that's a man by the name of H.H. Holmes, or you might know him by his birth name, Herman Webster Mudgett, which is one of the best cases, so I understand why someone changed their name. Your name is Herman Webster Mudgett. How are you supposed to be, a cool cat serial killer with that kind of name? H.H. Holmes, now that sounds sexy.
Herman is a fucking name. What's that?
Herman.
In Bad
Herman
Santa,
Mudgett.
in Bad Santa, the boy, his name is Herman.
Oh, is it? I don't remember. I just picture his face.
Can someone look it up? His name is he's like, because he's getting shipped out in school, and Billy Bob Thornton looks at him in his report card, and he's like, your name? Oh, it's Herman Merman.
Herman Merman.
He's like, your name is Herman Merman? He's
Dude,
like,
that's...
fuck, kid. No wonder you're getting the shit beat out of you.
That's
he's had no chance. He's like this fat kid named Herman Merman. So
Fat,
Herman
soft-spoken
Webster
kid.
Mudgett. That's his name, right? Herman Webster Mudgett.
Yeah, Herman Webster, Webster Dictionary, Webster, the television
This guy,
show.
right out of the gate, has
Mudgett.
he's given very little good cards in his playing deck. Herman Mudgett.
Yeah, and the cards don't get any better. He was born in a
Just gonna
small
kill people.
town.
That's all I can do with this name.
That's all he can do. He's got to fight back. He was born in a town called Gilmanton in New Hampshire, which at the time had a population of 5,000 people, and now has a population of 5,100 people. I don't actually know, but
No,
it's a small town in New Hampshire.
It's near one of the ski resorts.
Is it? I've never been.
Sort of, yeah.
Something that you might not notice when you're visiting downtown Gilmanton is there's no mention of Herman Mudgett being from there, almost like they're not proud of it. It's like, this is your most famous
Why not?
resident who graduated to be...
Literally your most
It's
famous
literally
person.
the most famous person you're ever going to produce. I mean, I don't care what the reasons are for it. But when little Herman Mudgett was growing up in Gilmanton, he had a mother who would not really help him out, was pretty distant, and a father who was an abusive drunk. And they were all Bible thumpers, too, so...
That's about right.
So he's got a good setup for life.
Yeah, that's like
Lining up well for what I thought he would be.
the quadratic equation for
Yeah,
being a
it's
serial killer.
It's
Unloving mother, abusive father, stuck in religion whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
A mother who's
he had
a little
all
bit
the
distant.
recipe that needed to be there.
Yeah, everything on his plate.
But except for one thing, chemical
Chemical
X.
X, which was spilled in his teen years. But yeah, his dad was a complete piece of shit. He used to beat the hell out of him, standard operating procedure. He used to lock him in a room and let him starve. He used to tie him down to a chair and yell Bible verses at him and just all the cool shit that you're gonna instill in your kids so they can be a serial killer.
Yeah,
one day.
Sloppy steaks, chicken spaghetti, chicken wings. Gotta be a real piece of shit.
And his hair was slicked back.
Just say Making a Murderer, season 1, 18 fucking.
Yeah, he was a real Brendan Dassey of New Hampshire at the time. So then you can imagine that lifestyle, and plus now you're going to school and you're being abused at home, so you're being weird. So then all the kids make fun of you for being called Herman Mudgett, and they beat the hell out of you there.
Herman.
And so really his whole life was hell, and he went on to take that out on.
I just think his name's
go
so
ahead.
funny. They're calling him Budget, and beating the shit out of him because he's poor.
You're on a budget, you fucking
Could you
poor.
Bringing your banana to school,
Stomping on him.
Stomping on his bananas.
Yeah, but that was one element he didn't have though, because his family did have money though, which is even worse because it's like they could have provided for him, but they starved him on purpose to punish him for being alive and weird shit like that,
Poor guy.
So Mudge is getting it at home, he's getting it at school, and so he starts taking it out on the wildlife in New Hampshire, which is now if you're looking at your serial killer bingo card, abusing animals. Take another one off of the list. Ding, ding, ding.
Checks out.
Gonna have a great future ahead of you.
First thing, small animals.
So he takes that on the animals. So as he goes to school, he's a very smart kid, and we'll see from the rest of his lifetime here. He is, if anything, he's not stupid. He's a really smart dude, if not a complete piece of shit. And he does really well. And he goes to college, for to medical school. He wants to become a doctor, which is not easy. Back then even, it's even more difficult now, but he becomes a doctor, and he becomes a pharmacy technician. So what do you call it? A doctor of chemistry, whatever you want to call it there. He learns about human biology, he learns about, different chemicals and different substances you can take and all the shit when he's at school. But I forgot to mention a very formative part of his life that he also this might have been part of his serial killer chemical X mixture, which is one time when his friends kidnapped him in order to bully him and abuse him, and they brought him to a doctor's office. And at the time, doctors used to use actual human skeletons in order to look at the human anatomy. And so there was an actual human skeleton. They held him down and they grabbed the skeleton hand and they put it in his face and they rubbed it all up in his face. And he said he was absolutely horrified and disgusted. And Mr. Mudgett remarked, well, after that, he said, and that was the last time I was ever afraid of anything. Chilling.
God.
Chilling. His whole life ahead of him, he's like, I knew from that moment on, I wasn't going to be scared about anything anymore.
I've had a human bone rubbed on my face at a young age. Nothing's going to pass that.
Well, in a serial killer kid brain, he's like, all right, this is my thing now. I'm terrified of this, and that means I'm going to do it to everybody for the rest of my life. That's what I should do.
Never get worse than this.
I'm taking the power back. I'm
going
to do all this shit to everybody else now. So that is one of the reasons why he got so interested in the human body and all that shit. Went to school for it. He got married in New Hampshire to a lady that he didn't really care for much, but he had a lot of ladies in his life, and he ended up getting a shit ton of money from her family, even more than what he had. So he used that money to say, why don't you stay here with our newborn son we just sired after our marriage, and I'm going to go to Chicago and open up a pharmacy. I'll call for you when I need you, a.k.a. I'll never talk to you again. See you later.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get divorced. I mean, it's the 1800s. He's off. He's off to see the wizard. He goes to Chicago. He starts working for a while as a pharmacist, opens up his own pharmacy. And when we think of pharmacies, we think about CVS, Walgreens, maybe Walmart's got one. When you think he's a pharmacist, you're thinking about he works behind the counter and gets paid $30 an hour to fill pill bottles. No. This is before the FDA. You open up a store full of potions and you just sell them to people and you say it's
You're making medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why over in the UK they still don't. You're not a pharmacist. You're a chemist.
Yeah, exactly. They're still chemists. Yeah.
Still,
Herman Mudgett, I have a cold. What would you prescribe me? Here's some heroin, cocaine,
and
iodine,
cat boogers.
and cyanide.
and lavender. All in one. We'll put a little mercury in there too, just because we know that works.
Just for the taste. Just a
Oh, yeah.
little taste.
just for the taste, because a nice metallic taste. That way you know your taste buds are still working.
Yes,
And
of
if you
course.
have a wife, make sure she blows tobacco smoke up your asshole twice a day. Remember that.
For vim and vigor.
And then never wash it.
Exactly right.
And yeah, Joe, I don't know if this is gonna jump a little ahead of what you're gonna say about his life, but I'm just gonna go for it. Another thing he did was, and he was really good at because he was so smart, was insurance fraud. He would do a lot of scamming. That's how he made a lot of money off of people doing stuff like that. Some of it was out of his own pharmacy.
All day long. We're going to talk about him being a killer, which we already talked about. Talk about him being a pharmacist, whatever.
Killing it with the taking money.
Scamming was his number one gig. He was one of the best scammers I've ever heard in my life. He had not just like 2 scams going at a time, or like one particular scam. Like the insurance fraud was one of his biggest scams, the most lucrative. But he had every scam you can think of. You know, obviously selling snake oil, saying it's going to make you cure cancer or whatever. He would do insurance fraud. He would steal horses and sell them to in a different state. He would buy bulk items and sell them away. He built all of his empire, we're coming up here, all on credit, and then never paid them back, and then he'd just disappear. He had everything worked out. This guy must have had a fucking, like, a genius brain to get all these scams going at the same time, and also, by all accounts, very charming dude, which is often synonymous with being a serial killer, because it's easy to get away with shit if you can explain it away and people like you. It's also easier to lure people into your life if you're charming and handsome, which I wouldn't consider him handsome, but, you know, maybe by 1800 standards, he was a real stud.
I know, pretty sweet mustache on
Great
that
mustache, but, you know, at the time, a lot of people had mustaches like that, so he wasn't really as standout as he was now.
Yes.
But yeah, as Dom said, he was a insurance fraud, and we're not talking about, you know, writing up a fake document and trying to cash out on it. We're talking about buying a cadaver, grinding up all of its features, taking out an insurance policy on a fake person, and then cashing it in, giving them that body and going, yeah, that's the guy who died, pay up. And they're like, I guess we have to. How else would you have a dead body?
Yeah. We don't have any
We
way to
can't
tell
identify
that's what
it, and obviously
is.
you're medical training, so you know.
You're a very successful businessman. You have no criminal record. Why should we not believe
I mean,
you?
that is some hardcore shit. He would give them dead bodies and be like, yeah, what are you going to do? There's no DNA, no dental records, so you can't do any of that shit now. So that's my buddy who I took out an insurance policy on. Now you get to pay up. He did that multiple times over multiple years for that one. And one of his best scams, I think, was I'll get into him building the murder castle now, because that's one of his best scams. It all has to do with taking out credit and then Bernie Madoffing it before even Bernie Madoff existed, and then paying creditors with new credit and then disappearing and then being like, no one can catch me. So I'll fast forward to...
And also having an initial plan that is something the city would want out of you, and doing it, but adding your own shit literally on top of it.
So I'll fast forward to a couple of years before the World's Fair. He's all posted up in here, and he's got his idea that he's going to build this murder castle. He doesn't tell anybody that's what it's called, and even him in his life never said it was called the murder castle, but it was. It was about 100 feet by 50 feet in a block in Chicago. And when he was building this big, which I think he listed as a hotel because it had all these rooms and he was going to rent them out.
He did, yes.
Which is justified. Oh, it's a business. You know, I'm a businessman. I'm going to build a hotel. But what he would do is...
Yeah, and knowing that the World Fair is coming up and they're going to need places
Ding,
to stay.
ding, ding. He's looking ahead. Like I said, he's smart. He's smart. He's a scammer, but he's a smart guy. So he's building this thing, and one of the aspects of him building it is that obviously he's taking out a bunch of credit that he's not going to pay back in order to build it, and he's hiring separate contractors and firing them almost immediately. Like a week in, 2 weeks in, you're fired. You're fired. Just complaining, keeping everybody in the dark, so everyone who built a part of this murder castle had no idea what all the other parts were like. Only he knew what the full picture was. And if you want to think half those guys got paid, you're wrong. He didn't even pay half of them. He just had all these scams and crazy things going on. And one of my favorite scams that was part of the murder castle is he bought all this furniture. He used to flip furniture. He would buy furniture on credit, and he would sell it fast enough so that when they came to repossess it before he paid them, he would disappear. So he would fill up a whole place with furniture, sell it all, and then move, and then they show up to repossess the furniture. The furniture would be long gone. The cash would be with him, and he'd be gone. So he did the same trick with the murder castle. He got all this furniture for it, and the creditors were coming after him constantly. He was always on the run, which was easier back then. And they said, we're coming, and we're going to take the furniture. But they thought ahead of time. They go, this guy's been on the run for a bit. I don't know if he's kind of sketchy. So they sent out one of their agents to park outside of his murder castle and watch for him to try to unload all the furniture. They're like, this guy, we got a feeling he's going to try to move all the furniture away. Then when we show up, it'll all be gone. We can't repossess it. But the guy sat out there for a whole day. No furniture ever left. No one left the whole building. So then when they kind of repossess the furniture, a bunch of guys show up. They walk in the house. All the furniture is gone. And Holmes is like, I don't know what you're talking about. You guys already repossessed it. And they're like, no, we didn't. We're here now to repossess it. He goes, well, where is it then? I didn't leave this place. Obviously, you have it. And they're like, no. Obviously, you did something with it. Well, you have a guy parked outside the whole time, right? So where the fuck is it then? And they're like, oh, you mudget. They called him Holmes. And they left. What he did was he put all the furniture.
Yo, Holmes, where's our furniture?
Is it in your Holmes? He put all the furniture. He had this massive basement room. He put it all in there. He demolished the door, bricked the whole wall, plastered over it. So it's all in this room that looks like a wall. He erased it. The house swallowed the furniture. And he got away with it, too. They never came back to get it because they couldn't figure out what it was. Meanwhile, he's like, yeah, sucker. All I have to do is tear this wall down and be easy peasy.
Mr. Holmes, tear down this wall.
Where's the furniture? Tear down this wall.
So that was murder castle and 10,000 things going, 10,000 different schemes going on at the same time. I don't understand how anybody has the energy for any of this shit. That's my first thing, because I know people.
Dude, thank you for bringing that up. Because
you're forgetting that he's not scared of anything,
right? But just the mental capacity to keep 20 different scams going at the same time.
It's too much work.
Yeah, even just to run one of those scams, it's got to be like, oh my god, I got to keep track of this. He's doing a credit scam. He's doing an insurance scam. Also, he's doing the fucking, snake oil where he's making this fake potions for his store. I mean, he's in 100 directions at once. He's got a wife in New Hampshire that has no idea where the fuck he is. He owes her money. He owes everybody money. He's just up and gone, and he's quick as hell, just moving from place to place. But now he's built his murder castle. Now it's finally built just in time for the World's Fair, 1893. And now the hotel guests are going to be coming into this creepy-ass hotel. They don't know it's creepy yet. Part of the mansion includes rooms such as the blind room, the dark room, the torture room, the dungeon, the rack, the mystery room. These are all rooms that the police gave it afterwards as they walked through the house. It included such things as trap doors, literal trap doors, hallways that went nowhere, rooms that didn't have exits, just one way in, and they just all bricked around and no windows, as well as a kiln in the basement that you could burn bodies in. He also had multiple gas lines leading to rooms. They were supposed to lead to stoves, but he just had gas lines leading into rooms where you could just turn it on and just gas people in their sleep. And if they wouldn't die with carbon monoxide poisoning, he could always light a match and fucking burn them to death in their own bedrooms. So the guy, he was creative.
I mean, he also had the secret hallways that were behind rooms, so he could get around.
He could sneak around, and no one else could see where he was coming. Yeah. So he had it all figured. I mean, basically, picture like a medieval torture castle built in Chicago in the 1800s. I mean, it was like it's a horror movie with this guy built. It's just this crazy, scary thing.
Yeah.
No one knew the way around it besides him. Like he said, there's false walls, there's all kinds of secret tunnels, and then if he killed you, he could just dump you down the fucking trash chute. You land in the basement of the torture devices. He had a rack.
Perfect.
One of the ones that you tie your arms and legs up. He had all kinds of torture devices.
Yeah, they stretch.
Yeah, he had,
Has anyone made a movie
obviously.
about this yet? I mean, this is like the perfect.
No, they were supposed to make one starring.
Jesus.
There was talks of Leonardo DiCaprio playing H.H. Holmes and Scorsese doing the movie.
Oh, that would be good.
And they never did it, but I'm like, you got to do it. It'd be a great movie, the whole thing. The charming guy, the creepy castle, the whole thing. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, it's the perfect business model. You offer a service, people come in, you poison them, bring them to your torture room, torture them until they die, then bring them down one more floor, cut them up and burn them. And there's no evidence of them ever being
It's efficient, if nothing else. And part of his scam business that I wanted to save until right now is that he used to sell skeletons to, doctor's offices and medical practitioners. Because, like I said before, they still use real human skeletons. And the whole code about cadavers is really fast and loose at the time. So he actually would make money off of either stealing people's money who he killed, or torturing them into telling them how they get fraud, setting up an insurance policy on them, and after he was all done milking every last cent of them, he'd sell their skeleton to a college and then make like $800. I mean, what a fucking scam. I really think the guy might like money more than killing people, but he sure did like killing people too. But he'd also kill people not just by strangulation, poisoning, torture, but also starving them to death, and he would lock them in the rooms that you couldn't get out of.
Oh, I wonder how he got that idea.
That's exactly what I was driving at, Dom. Thank you so much. Literally, all the fucking things his parents did to him as a kid, he did it to other people. Almost like hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, he did everything except for hold him down and read the Bible.
Yeah, that he's probably like, yeah, even I'm not sick enough for that.
No one's even doing that.
Yeah, that's next level shit. He's not that bad.
He's like, what am I, a demon?
So yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's what I want to talk about with H.H. Holmes, all that crazy ass shit. Just like storybook, like fantasy level villainy, and of course, as we're talking about during the World's Fair, you have a bunch of strangers coming in and out of your hotel, people who be from all around the world, all around the country. These people go missing. No one's looking for them for months and even years. Before you can go, hey, Dad's going to the World's Fair.
Yeah.
You don't hear about him for a year. You think it's normal. He doesn't show up in 18 months. You go, oh, something might be up. Way too late at that point.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, depending on where you're living, 3 months to get there. It's a 6-month fair. You can't do everything all in one day. Maybe he's staying for the whole time. 3 months back.
You wouldn't even know they're missing until almost the fucking statute of limitations is up on murder at the time. Like, it's too late, The evidence, forget about it. He's burning him up in the basement or he's selling him to a college. I mean, he had this shit figured out. And anyone who went in and out of there, they were no-name people. But it wasn't just no-name people. He was killing people he knew, too. And they still couldn't catch him. It was like, he wanted to get caught. He was killing kids. He was killing women. He was killing men. He was killing everybody. And no one was catching the guy.
It's that perfect timeline where it was like, all right, we have enough of a structured society where we can, I can get money without having to actually spend my own money. But there's no real records yet.
I mean...
No, this is still back in time where you could show up in town, go to the post office and go, start expecting mail for an H.H. Holmes. They go, okay. Yeah. And then a letter shows up and you walk in a week later like, oh, Mr. Holmes, we have your letter right here. No address, it just was being shipped by name.
Yeah, that's good enough for me. Yeah, no records of anything. It's all up in the air. I don't even know how people took out lines of credit when you could fucking ship out and move in a week later and be like, I thought you were a man of your word, Mr. Holmes. Well, no, I'm not. I've been scamming you for 20 years. I'm very far from a man of my word. I'm a fucking liar. I lie every day. Even when they ended up actually interrogating him many years later, he lied about the whole thing. Like he said he killed people who were alive, and he didn't say he killed people who he did kill. The guy can't be trusted.
Yeah, if you follow his record, if you trusted every kill he said he did, it was a couple hundred people, but it was like confirmed. I think it was 27.
I think it's closer to that. It's nowhere near the number he said. But on top of all this, part I didn't know about the story is that he actually had an Igor to his Dr. Frankenstein, and he had a henchman for a couple of years. And I'll put his name up here. I remember his name is Mr. Pitcairn or whatever. And
B.B. Bones.
B.B. Jones. It's his Stephen King alter ego. But the guy, they never tried him in court, but they assumed he helped them with the the disposal of the bodies because the guy's like, hey, I mean, come on, I already built a murder castle. What am I gonna do, lugging these bodies all the time? I'm a rich man. I'm a rich, powerful man.
Yeah, he didn't move all that furniture.
No, he had help. He had help. You think
he didn't have a contractor do it either because they would have talked.
And actually, he did kill one of the contractors too.
But now, I don't know, maybe you're going to say it, but did he pay his Igor or did he scam him too?
No, so he did pay his Igor because the Igor was in on the scam. So once the guy's in on the scam, you have to be careful about scamming them because they're already privy to your shit.
You can't scam
and of course,
scammer.
If Igor did go to the police, he has a mountain of evidence. Even just the evidence of, let's say he didn't murder anybody. Check this place out. That'd be enough evidence to be like, oh, you're up to something. Like, they didn't know what it looked like inside. Yeah. If they saw the fucking trapdoor and the human remains in the fucking crematorium, they'd be like, all right, well, even if we can't charge you for a crime, we'll figure something out. They never did. But here's...
You know what they should have done? Would have been a really good thing? Is if anyone ever got suspicious, a cop shows up, it's like, oh yeah, no, come on, come inspect it, and put him into a room, lock it, turn the gas on.
I wouldn't put it past him. I would not put it past him. There's no radio interview.
You know, take the cops. If the
Breaker
cop
19,
came
trapped.
on a horse and wagon, you take that, you bring it out of town, you sell the horse, you sell the wagon. If the cop came on foot, well, no problem. You just burn everything with them
Bingo.
anyways.
See, now you're thinking like a.
No, sorry. You keep his uniform and you sell it to a crook who can then rob with the uniform.
See, now you're thinking like a mudget.
Genius.
Now you got to figure it out. There's always money to be had.
Well, that's where the famous phrase comes from.
Exactly.
Thinking like a mudget.
It's not just about the
Holmes.
killing; it's about the making the money in the meantime. You know, obviously you take all their rings off. You know, all their gold fillings. You sell those. I mean, the guy's a complete scumbag. He even ended up when the law was closing in on him after about 100 people went missing in the World's Fair. They go, "What the fuck's going on here at the Murder Castle?" Which is a shitty name for a hotel. Who's the one guy who could put his name out there? Mr. Igor killed him too. He fucking killed Igor. He killed this one guy.
Oh, really?
Dude, this would have been just the best movie ever because it would have been so funny.
Oh my god! They have to make it. They have to make
God,
it.
someone's gotta do this.
Dude, imagine it. So you'd have to keep with the stereotype of Igor being like short, stumpy,
yeah.
with a hunch.
Yeah,
so it would be
you're
Leonardo DiCaprio as H.H. Holmes, Danny DeVito as
yeah, that'd be
Igor.
great. America's clamoring for this. The script's already probably been written.
You know, H.H. Holmes is all freaking out because he's like, "Oh, they're coming. They're starting to figure out." And Igor just goes, "Can I offer you an egg in these trying times?"
Can I offer you an egg? Yeah. So he kills Igor, but the
Just
scam's not
imagine
over then.
Water for Elephants vibe horror movie with the
Water for Elephants.
No,
You're talking about the Robert Pattinson movie that none of us have seen?
I've seen it and it was fucking.
Yeah, I've never
great.
seen it.
And no, but it's like Carnival train that era of time.
Yep.
And then you
Yep.
have the World's Fair in the back, which would be the first movie in a long time that really shows the World's Fair and how beautiful it was. Then you've got fucking
it's
clown
it's a
scene
smash
at
hit.
the murder castle with fucking Igor and whatever his name is.
It's Mr. Mudget. It's a no-brainer.
mint.
It really is.
Fucking mint movie. It'd be so funny.
Yeah. The Murder Castle alone would be
Cast in
cool,
here.
but it's the
Nah, you're
World's
good, man.
Fair.
Be a great movie.
So he kills Igor, and the scam's not over yet because now Igor's insurance money, that's his money. He's thinking, I need, every time I kill somebody, I want the money. But his money goes to his wife and 3 kids. So he takes his new mistress. Also, he got married 4 times, by the way, Holmes, and he never got divorced. So you can imagine the charisma there. Just always getting married.
The alimony must have been
Oh,
terrible.
yeah, the alimony, yeah. And so he ends up taking, when the pressure's on, he takes Igor's wife and kids and his mistress and his new kid all to Toronto to escape the law. Ends up killing Igor's wife and 2 of her kids to try to get the fucking insurance money. And the guy's out of control, dude.
I just think it's like any small inconvenience he
Just kills, immediately
Okay, I'll
kills.
take him with me. It'll probably be fine. And they want McDonald's in the car ride. He's like, okay,
All right,
fucking nuts.
you're getting gassed.
Get the fuck out of here. Line up so I can do this
You
in
know how
one
much
go.
kid skeletons are worth? Twice as much as adult skeletons, all right? You watch your mouth.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure, cop skeletons would be worth more, too.
But you can't
if
say
he
it's a cop.
sold it as, this is a cop skeleton.
You can tell because his back is blue. All right. Anyway,
you carve a badge into his
Tin Star.
breastbone. It's like, it's a cop.
Exactly. So anyway, he eventually this cell does come back in him because much like all major crimes in the world, especially back in the day, even still now, he doesn't get caught because of his dozens and dozens of murders and torture in his murder castle. He gets caught because he owes people money, and they want that fucking money. So a bunch of creditors get together.
It's my money and
That's
I
right.
want it now.
They all team up. Different creditors team up, and they hunt him down independently of the police, and they find him that way. That's how the police catch him, because they needed to get money from him. The police weren't going to do shit about it. He was going to get away with this forever. But unfortunately, he should have just stuck to the killing and stopped all the money laundering and robbing. That's what gets the government interested in you. I mean, the mafia didn't go down because of murder. They went down for tax evasion. So that just tells you something about where people's priorities are. Yeah. And he...
Also, the main reason why moonshining is illegal. 'Cause
Can't
you
tax it. They don't care
It's
if you're...
not regulated.
Oh, it's not safe.
It's not because of how
don't
strong
care.
it is. They're like, well, we can't get any money off of
Yeah.
it, so that's why you can't. That's why there's these things going on where like, oh, you're going to have to start reporting transactions from Venmo
They
on
can't
your
wet their
taxes.
beak.
It's like, well, it's
They gotta
tax-free
wet their
stuff,
beak.
so it's like,
Yeah,
So basically, we're saying that H.H. Holmes fell for the same reason that Venmo will go out of business someday.
Exactly. And OnlyFans, too. So, yeah, he ends up actually going down convicted of murder, only one murder. And that murder is the murder of Igor. Because when they found his burned body, they found an evidence of chloroform. And they go, if he died in a fire, why is there chloroform? And H.H. Holmes is like, how the fuck should I know?
Weird question. I don't know. Huh.
And they go,
not
you're
a
a chemist.
Yeah, don't you know how to make chloroform?
and also, Mr. Holmes, dying of a fire doesn't count if it's in a drawer in your basement. It was an accident. Could happen to anybody.
I accidentally locked him in the chest.
I accidentally cremated him while he's still breathing. Whoopsie. Can I get one whoopsie my whole life, please? All right, can I get one call to my 3 wives that live in New Hampshire, Indiana, and fucking Ontario, please?
He's in court. They said, you murdered this man. He pulls out the Uno reverse card and just says, no, you.
And he gets away with it again and go, Mr. Holmes, you've done it again. You're free to go. I mean, what a piece of shit, though. This guy's a real fucking shithead. I mean, not just a liar, a thief, a scammer, cheating on his wife, torturing, murdering. I mean, just an all-around shitbag. But
it's nothing he didn't do.
Nothing he didn't do.
He says,
he was doing drugs. He's a fucking pharmacist. He's probably getting into the fucking
drugs, doing drugs.
Oh yeah,
raping,
all
killing,
the above.
Selling bodies. I mean, he needs to go down.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're at this level, I'm sure there was some mild necrophilia.
I'm assuming so. He never was charged with that, but he got his D wet, but I don't know. It's just a complete piece of shit, and I
something about seeing a corpse on a rack just really got him going.
What's a rack?
It's a country.
It's a country. What is that, 4? Is that 4 in a row?
Yeah, they're all natural, too. It's all natural, baby. But yeah, so I'm so excited because I could not talk about the World's Fair. I'm like, fucking H.H. Holmes was in that shit. So all the exciting shit we talked about, all of that.
I never realized until this how close it was. They're like, it was that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Which I think is a huge reason why you got away with it because, like I said, to preface it, they built so many buildings.
Also, Mystery Incorporated wasn't around back then.
They would have figured it out because the meddling kids weren't there.
So those meddling kids.
But yeah, there was no oversight of what are you building, why, how much money. It's just because they're all expanding so fast that he just kind of slipped through the cracks, which is his MO.
Perfect scenario.
That is the story of
and then,
Herman Mudgett.
So what was it? It was I believe it was 1898 when he was finally executed. He was hanged in, I believe, in New York.
Pennsylvania, actually.
Pennsylvania. It's close. It's only one state away. They touch.
Yep.
Nice.
And his last words, he looked over at the...
Well, the craziest thing was that he took out a huge insurance policy
himself. The ultimate scam.
So they buried him with millions of dollars.
He couldn't stop scamming into the very last. I have a good authority.
It's a bank account with $1 million and he's dead and no one can ever touch it ever for the rest of the year.
Last fuck you. Oh man! So he gets up there on the gallows, as it were, because this is not that long. They still did public execution, and he apparently said to the executioner, he leaned over to the guy and he goes, "Take your time, old man." And they kicked him out. They hanged him, and how hanging is supposed to work, which you probably mentioned in the podcast before, is that it's supposed to drop you so violently that the rope snaps your neck, and when your neck is severed, your brain only has so much longer before that's it for you. Now that all your organs are separated from your nervous system. But sometimes, which happen very often by accident, because not everyone's an expert, and even less often, but sometimes on purpose, the drop wouldn't be big enough, and it wouldn't snap your neck. So H.H. Holmes took 15 minutes to die as he was slowly strangled by a rope in his own body weight. So at least there's a little bit of justice at the end of the story there. Took him quite some time to wriggle around. He wasn't so smooth up there when he didn't wear his hat either. Wrongful day, malpractice.
He calls Morgan and Morgan because he didn't die quick enough and sues them.
He probably would win that case too. That fucking sly bastard.
Fucking stop getting money.
Yeah, he'd know how. Well, that's kind of like also completely different beast. But with a lot of times with guillotines, it wasn't sharp enough to
you
like
want to be the first
cut
guy.
all the way through in one. They'd have to crank it back up and drop it again, crank back up and drop it again to get your head to.
In their
fully
defense,
cut
I
off.
think it was sharp enough
So-
when they started using it, but they just used it 100 times in a
no,
day, and
yes.
they're like, "Ah,
At one
it's all
point in
caked
time.
up," you know.
There was a thing where like you were like respected, like you were like not the dirtiest dirtbag if you were the first one of the day to get your head cut off because it was the sharpest then. Then sharp.
Yeah, you know, it's like
then you probably
sloppy
didn't even feel
seconds.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, aren't you
Well,
gonna
who-
clean the
there's
blade? What do you care? You're gonna get infected?
I
You're
kinda
fucking
care.
done.
Like in Apocalypto.
You still don't know the name of it. It's fantastic.
I don't fucking know, dude. Because the band, you know, like Apocalyptica and then Apocalypto and then Apocalypse. It's all confusing. So, and I don't like that band. But anyways, when they're all blue, they're painted blue, and they're getting their heads cut off at the top of the pyramid. I
Yeah.
don't like that they don't clean the blade. Like if I was up there,
It's gross, right? It's icky.
It's gross. Yeah, I'd be like, don't put their
Grody.
blood
I don't want to get HIV.
Imagine the balls be like, I'm gonna get HIV from that that sharpened rock you're gonna carve my heart out with. Will you at least wear gloves? This is a surgery. You're disgusting.
And not even just for me, for you.
Yeah.
Also,
you can still get it.
I mean, the blood splatter on your face, on you, like you're licking that, you're gonna get a blood
Yeah.
disease.
The world serpent is not gonna save you from AIDS. Just ask Freddie Mercury.
But there's also a Family Guy cutscene where they're talking about guillotines, and they say, well, you know, those things didn't always work first try. And it cuts to some guy coming home, and he just has like a flap of skin holding his head on. His head's like over to the side. And his wife goes, oh, hi, honey, how did it go? He goes, they couldn't get through today, so I gotta go back tomorrow. His head's just hanging off.
Nearly headless Nick, like Harry Potter. Yeah, that's good stuff. So that's all I got for H.H. Holmes. You guys want to take our last commercial break and then talk about the World's Fair happened after H.H. Holmes?
Sure.
Divine synergy, divine energy. In my prime like 9 to 95, but I'm down to ride on my enemy. You ain't down to ride when you better be. Better get a vibe, get a bit of me. Never let a mind, never let a dime, never let a rhyme get ahead of me. That just ain't in my pedigree. It's Hunter Hearst till I hit the hearse. No man, that's ain't no mystery. It's will go down in history. That World's Fair, that Queen shit, that New York, that Dream shit, that All-Star, that Team shit, that King Section, your Queen, bitch. 96 Knicks, and I'm feeling like Houston fresh off the bench with them clutch 3-pointers. Got some weed for my consumption. Shows from Queens to London, got the fans screaming lyrics that I wrote in my apartment.
Can't see you. We good?
Dude. Yeah, we're good.
You can't
All right,
see
Nice
me
slice.
while I'm
Welcome
smiling
back
at you.
to the Dylan Joe Basin Podcast, World's Fair edition on this beautiful March something day, right before the start of the World's Fair usually. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple other World's Fairs to wrap things up here, and there's an interesting one
Yeah.
here because it ties in.
It
a
didn't
lot.
all end in the 1893 one. I
1893.
mean, that was a famous one, obviously, for a lot of reasons, but it didn't end there.
It didn't, and this was the one I'm going to talk about is the second most expensive World's Fair of all time in the United States. And it began in 1939 in Flushing, Queens at Corona Park. So this one was a big deal because it was in New York, which is cool, and they had like a million pavilions.
That's another great band name.
You know, that already happened. They got caught lip syncing, though. Oh, sorry, that's Milli
That's
Vanilli.
Milli Pavili, not Million Pavilion.
So it had the amusement area, the transportation zone, the food zone, the USSR pavilion, the Swedish, the whatever. So what you'll know is that this started right after. It was 4 months prior to the opening of this one that World War II began when Germany invaded Poland.
Yeah,
So-
that's a really hot button issue, I imagine, at the time.
Puts a
Big
real
time.
damper
And
on your plans.
Over those 4 months, the Nazis, took more territory too, and all those places they all just wore black and had black shrouded things like it was totally a thing.
Yeah, that never happens
Yeah,
now. Like
they
when
were hiding the
Crimea got
Bilstein
annexed.
Yeah, right. So.
Still happens now.
So it was interesting. So at one point, so New York City was getting bombed sort of frequently, like weird terrorist attacks in 1939, and so they're already on heightened alert of this. And So they're a little bit nervous, and there was like a lot of bomb threats. So there was a detective, and he took every single threat seriously and investigated all of them, and all of them turned out to be false. Except one of them, they went to investigate, and it was in the British Pavilion. And they went up to it, and they heard it ticking. And they asked the guy, like,
hold your mic close to your mouth.
It is. This is very close to my mouth.
Oh, sorry. Good.
So they asked how long it's been there, and the guy said it's been over 24 hours. So he was like, all right, well, as a bomb tech, that means that if it was going to blow up, it would have blown up already. So let's open this thing up. It blew up, and it killed a bunch of police officers. And
holy shit.
yeah,
I never even heard of this.
So it was this thing, and they're trying to figure out, and the thing with this is, this killed a bunch of people. It was really bad, and the reason this is significant is because there was, they still don't know who did it.
Unsolved.
They have some leads, and they also think that they tried to. It was in the British Pavilion, and they have a lot of leads that were German. So,
well, Leeds is a city in England. Is that a lead?
I don't know. They have a lot of.
I think it's a pretty good lead.
Suspect. So, the interesting thing
Was it
is
Richard
that,
Jewell? That fucking asshole.
It could have been, yeah. So, during that time, the British MI6 existed with Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond. And
yes.
he worked with a guy who was the original James Bond. And he was
Sean Connery
involved in this somehow, and they're thinking... His name was actually James Bond. And they're thinking that...
No, it wasn't.
It was. The original...
There was an actual James Bond?
There was an actual James Bond. He was a Welsh spy. The original James Bond was named James Bond, and he worked with Ian Fleming in the British Secret Service as a spy. So there's this slight conspiracy theory that he's someone who was seen around there at the time, and they're thinking that he framed the Germans for this explosion because they still just don't know who did it. They don't know who did the bombs, and they set off 2 of them, and that's the story behind that. So
you think it would be like a false flag kind of thing where they're like,
yeah.
oh, we're going to plant the bombs, like the British bombed their own, expo just to be like, hey, those fucking Germans, you know how they do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the 1940 World's Fair, but fun fact about it is that they unveiled the time capsule that was the Westinghouse time capsule, which was not to be opened till the year 6939.
That is aggressive. That's so
they made an executive decision.
Imagine being like, hey, it's 1900. Let's bury this for 7,000 years.
I mean, human civilization hasn't even been around for 7,000 years in earnest. Unless we're talking about Göbekli Tepe, of course. But I'm saying the kind of shit where you're like, we have nuclear bombs coming up here pretty soon.
let's just open it up. we have now found a way to kill our own planet. Let's open this thing up.
Well, and the best thing is that there's fucking nothing in it. It's writings by Albert Einstein and Thomas Mann, copies of Life magazine, a Mickey Mouse watch, a Gillette safety razor, a Kewpie doll,
6,000 years,
$1, a pack of Camel cigarettes.
Hey, hold on now. That's a hot ticket item there.
Yeah, some seeds for things like wheat and cotton.
Okay, that's kind of reasonable.
Yep.
Racist.
And a few cigarettes that someone also smoked and then put in there.
That's cute.
And millions of pages of
case of people
microfilm.
leaving their butts where they should not be.
Did everyone just empty their pockets in this thing, and then 6,000 years would be good?
Yep. Pretty
It's
much.
not even relevant now. It's 100 years. I mean, it's oh my god, that's so stupid.
It's really dumb. And a
Thank
couple
God
other
they
things
opened it
like
up.
Nylon fabric was unveiled, and pretty much.
What an insane thought that, like, we're going to put our future technologies in this time capsule. That's not what a time capsule is. They're not going to be impressed by your nylon in the year 6,000.
No. The nylon wasn't put in it. The nylon was unveiled. I'm just saying that.
Okay.
The
I thought that was the
time
same
capsule
thing.
Time capsule was a big thing, but then other things.
The invention of nylon.
This one was nylon.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
Cool.
so I have
synthetic
contributed.
substances.
I
Start
contributed
using
to a
oil
time
to make things.
I contributed to a time capsule once, and
Cool.
basically it's not that
All right,
impressive.
moving on.
Because
Nice.
hold on. I'm just because in comparison, this stuff is just as bad as what I thought I should have put in a time capsule. I was 8 years old at the time. Keep that in mind. It was for Boy Scouts
fair.
or Cub Scouts. And what did I put in my time in the time capsule? Which was one of those metal Dutch cookie tins. An electric energy card from Pokemon.
That's what I was going to guess. Pokemon card.
Guessed it. That's great. I appreciate.
I'm not putting my Charizard in there. I'll put one
Dude,
of the energy
Joe,
cards.
Joe, we buried a time capsule in the front yard of St. Michael's. Where the fuck is that now?
Oh
Gone.
yeah, we
It's
did.
Gone.
There was a bunch of
I know,
lame shit
but
in it
why
too. But
can't we?
Hold
I'm
on.
gonna
St.
burn my
Michael's
health
is still
sector.
there. So
the grass
so
Wait,
must
St.
might
Michael's is
still
not
be there.
Is the grass still there?
I don't know.
I'm digging that thing up. I have a metal detector. I'm gonna tell.
There's something in there.
yeah.
For
To
sure.
be fair, my time capsule that we did is near IC Church next to a statue. It was supposed to get dug up like 8 years ago, and it never happened. And I was like, oh.
Oh,
I'm
so
doing
you
my Pokemon
it
card
wasn't
back.
too early. It was too late now. You got to dig it up now.
Yeah, who's keeping track of this? I know. I think I'm
What
gonna
the hell?
go write to people and be like, I'm gonna open this fucking thing.
All right, Dylan, we got to start digging up St. Michael's and be like, it's for science.
Yeah, we'll be like, this.
I'm
is
pretty sure the Vatican would be
I
pretty
have
mad
a
if you
metal
dug up St.
detector. I'll
Michael.
call the paper and I'll be like, we're gonna open this thing now.
He
'cause
never
no one
died.
fucking
He's an
remembers.
angel. You fucking heathen.
No one remembers when the fuck we were supposed to open it.
It's like
you know?
it's like one of those things where a solid skips liquid and goes right to gas. He didn't die. He went from being a human to an angel.
No, he went from being an angel to still being an angel. He was never a human. He's an archangel, you dip. Oh my gosh!
You
Someone,
telling me
all right,
that
Martha,
your school?
You better watch this. He's going to hell.
Hold on. You're telling me that your school didn't even worship an actual person?
They worship an angel.
That's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Immaculate Conception worshipped Mary.
No,
Yours
they
is
worship
not
the
even an
idea
actual
of God
person?
fucking Mary, which is not the same as Mary. Because there's St. Mary's, but there's also the Church of the Immaculate Conception. No. It's the Church of the Mary getting pregnant. It's totally different than the Church of Mary. But yeah, no, Dylan's right that we need to dig that shit up. And there's probably Pokemon cards in that one too, to be honest. I don't know how
Oh
old
my
we were.
god,
but-
worth so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because this Pokemon card's been underground for 20 years.
And
It's
it
worth as
probably
much as
is.
anyone's willing to pay for it.
I don't know how hermetically sealed that box
Yeah,
is.
what
It
did
might
you
be
put it in?
full of
Because
water.
I know for a fact the one that we did in the cookie tin, the cookie tin's gone.
Oh. You think
That
it's gone?
definitely rusted out.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely rusted out from rainwater seeping into the ground, and that thing's dissolved.
Yeah.
And anything inside.
I
That
feel like
wasn't
the one we
plastic
did was
is
metal
destroyed.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it probably was. We would have thought of that.
Plastic is the
So,
way to go, you know.
Yeah.
So a couple other things. So we went over like big deal things at the World's Fair as we kind of wrap this up. Eiffel Tower, Ferris wheel, X-ray machine at the 1901 one in Buffalo, New York.
Yes, let's
failed.
talk about the X-ray machine
1901.
because
I would not have
at
guessed
the,
that.
it was. Dylan, what city was the 1901 World Fair at?
Buffalo.
In Buffalo, New York.
Imagine the last time Buffalo was relevant.
Oh, yeah. And then they made their wings. The very interesting
They
about
had
the
the
1901
World's Fair.
World Fair. Yes, and
They voted. Oh my god, that's insane.
it was also the site. Well, not at the World Fair, but in the same area was the site of the third presidential assassination when
Yes.
William McKinley was shot on
McKinley.
a train platform, and Thomas Edison was debuting his X-ray machine. He said, "Bring him here. I can show you where the bullet is." And they didn't trust it, and they didn't do it, and they never got it out, and he
Wow.
died because of it.
That's wild.
And he died from
Edison's
gangrene.
always-
That's how fucking old of a time this was.
Yeah. No one died from blood loss. They all died from gangrene and infection
Yeah.
and shit.
Fucking gangrene. So, X-ray machine. Next up on the list is the 1962 World's Fair in Seattle, where the Space Needle was invented.
That's why I should have known that. I kept going because I learned that the Space Needle is the most recent in the line of megastructures made for the World's Fair. I should have known
Pretty
that.
wild.
Oh, also, this is I completely forgot to say this earlier. There were the Chicago World Fair 1893. There were two buildings, and by that, two buildings that survived, and by that it's really two of the things that were in the building. One of them was an art building, and that became the don't know what it's called, the Art Museum
of Chicago.
Chicago.
Or the World's Fair?
No, from the World's Fair. World's Fair.
So by survived, you mean just people didn't get rid of them? They held on to these things.
I'm saying so. All the buildings were taken down, but two institutions maintained through the World's Fair because it was like, this is the World's Fair Art Center, and that turned into Chicago's Art Museum, where the famous scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they're staring at that painting over and over.
That was from the World's Fair.
Yeah, and up until, I think it was the 1920s when they finally moved it from the World's Fair building, which was only meant to be up for a year or two, into its current place now. So it's less that the buildings are still there, but institutions that were established because of the fair. Two of them are still in Chicago. One's an art museum, and I forget what the other one is. But
you son of a bitch. Then stop saying two.
It's the beautiful building that, like, the most one you see in all the pictures is the one that's still standing, and it looks very much like the Capitol
Space
building
Needle
or something. So
cool.
Other things that came out of the World's Fair in 1964, back to New York, Ford Mustang.
Sick.
The 64 and a half.
Wow.
You know, the major inventions of time. Cracker Jack.
This one.
Mustang.
Yeah. Cracker Jack, Mustang, Space Needle, X-ray machine, time capsule. No, so 1960.
Sexy. 1969.
Dude,
so
there's a lot of X's in this word, in this thing here. So it says, IMAX Movies 1970 Expo Osaka, Japan. Okay, a lot of sexy.
Japan finally got theirs.
A lot of sexiness going on. 1970, we got IMAX movies.
They're not that long.
That's a long time.
I guess it didn't. Well, obviously, it must have been really popular, then died down. Then a furniture store was like, "Hey, we can do that."
Jordans, yeah, exactly.
The only reason
I think it took so long to reach the public. Like, the World's Fair in Chicago, the whole thing was electrified, and most people didn't have porch lights until 50 years later. So you know how it goes.
Yeah. Last but not least on the list is 1982's World Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee. Everyone gets two guesses.
No. You got to be shitting me.
What?
Knoxville, Tennessee. I get it. I mean, Buffalo, maybe 100 years ago. The whole entire world had to go to Knoxville, Tennessee to fucking show this shit off.
And guess what?
Paris, New York. I mean, Knoxville.
Okay. So they unveiled something. Is it a? Well, it must be some kind of technology.
Was it a self-cleaning spittoon? So when you're spitting your dip in there, it'll clean itself overnight?
No, but it is used as a spittoon sometimes.
Oh, the plot
Joe's
thickens.
ass.
Yes.
Oh, come on. That's
used as
only mildly accurate.
Sometime. I have no. Can we get any other hints?
So it's a brand of spittoon.
Salty spittoon?
What the fuck?
It's a very
I have
famous,
no fucking idea.
wildly used brand of spittoon. Probably majority of them are Budweiser Light brand spittoons.
What year was this?
1982.
The Coors Party Ball.
When the Bud Light can was introduced.
Well, no, Bud Light can is a well-known brand of probably the most popular spittoon of all time. This is a different brand of spittoon.
Are you talking about
the aluminum can?
Was it the transition from the pull top cans to just the regular? It's all combined to aluminum cans.
I'm saying, okay, so imagine Bud Light is one brand of spittoon. Another one could be Lagunitas IPA branded spittoon. Do you get what I'm getting at here?
So another beer, but it's not. You're not talking about the actual can. Oh, Jack Daniels.
You drinking Jack Daniels from a can?
Nope.
Yeah, dude.
I have a guess. Samuel Adams beer.
No, you're all wrong. It's Cherry Coke.
You fucking asshole.
That's not even close to Bud Light.
No one ever spits in a Cherry Coke can, you bitch.
Well, I was saying, I know, but
Don't even act like we didn't know that. You fucked us up on that one.
Yeah, I did fuck you up on that one. Not really, though. But, okay, so it had that, and then it also had the only thing left standing there from this is the 266-foot steel tower topped with a golden globe known as the Sun Sphere.
Cool. It's always a good statue to be left behind.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
I can't believe Boston never got one, Los Angeles never got one, but fucking Knoxville and Buffalo got one. I mean, it's like, come on.
There's more space. Where the fuck are you going to do it in Boston? Queens was more open back then.
They did it in fucking New York.
And Queens is more open. It's not Manhattan.
Well, they could have done it in fucking Medford. If they wanted to. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah, they could definitely are.
If they did it in Queens, you know, I don't know.
Boston.
Yeah, no,
I just don't understand why the entire world is going to descend on Knoxville, Tennessee. I mean, no shade to Knoxville. It feels like as far as the entire world gets to vote on where we're going to Knoxville, Tennessee. It'd be like going to fucking... I can't even name you a city in another country that's like Knoxville because there's no cities I know in other countries that are as low on the ranking list of like popular cities as Knoxville. I couldn't tell you the 50th most populated city in China. It'd be like that.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yep, that's what I'm thinking. So that's all I've got. Sorry about the sound problem. I thought, because I hear myself in this and it sounds amazing.
No worries. You know, we should have tested it.
Heard me.
It's easy enough.
I was like, we good? And it wasn't.
No. We know we talked. We should have tested the thing when you slapped the mic. That's our bad. We should have.
Moving forward, we gotta do that.
Exactly.
So.
One day,
we're a young podcast. We have not been around for over 2 years.
It's new technology. As soon as we figure this out, we're gonna move on to the next thing. So it's just how it goes. But it's all good.
As soon as we figure out how to get this to work, we're gonna get ready for the Dylan and Joe Mason podcast vlogs, and that's what we'll be doing.
Start vlogging.
The DJ BV.
Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up.
Dominic, why don't you welcome us back?
I will say, as long as I don't run out of ideas for how to change what I'm wearing, whether on my head, chin, or chest, I will never get bored doing this podcast. But that being said, I think we should get into final thoughts here. You know, Chicago World's Fair, H.H. Holmes, the vast majority of World Fairs that have existed that some of us didn't know happened, whether it's pre-1893 or post-1893. You know, we're all learning things on this podcast, except for me, because I came in here knowing all of this already. Dylan, why don't you tell us something you learned today?
I learned a lot about H.H. Holmes. I thought that he wrote The Lord of the Rings. So I learned that.
No, that's J.K. Rowling.
That's J.
Okay. So that's been eye-opening to me that he didn't, and a little bit disappointed, actually, knowing his background. Kind of wish he did. That's what I learned today.
You would have been better off.
Joe, what did you learn today?
I learned that they had a world fair in the middle of World War II, and they're like, hey, everyone, come out here and show out your new technology, but not the shit we're about to use to kill each other the next 3 years. Not that stuff. Just the cute stuff. Not anything too crazy.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, the 120 years earlier, they were showing off the Maxim gun. What the hell? It's like the fucking Olympics in Germany when the Americans came out and a black guy won the entire thing, and Hitler's like, that's not allowed. We're at a war right now. What are we doing in living sports? Yeah. It's such a silly thing to have.
My favorite thing about that, though, is you from that specific Olympics is the video of Adolf Hitler fucking cranked up on meth.
Oh, yeah.
Shaking away.
Slapping his leg.
It's
strong leadership there.
It shows you the dichotomy of how stupid it is to be like, we're having these world, unification things, but meanwhile, people are blowing their brains out. It's like, it's obviously a farce. Like, how can you have, peace and war at the same time? It's fake.
Like a fart?
Moving on. What did you learn, Dom?
I learned that in 1982, they introduced Cherry Coke at the Knoxville, Tennessee World's Fair.
It is later than I thought it would have been.
What a fun fact, guys!
I'm not surprised by the year. It's just I really do have a hard time believing that Chicago, New York, Paris,
fun fact,
Osaka.
Knoxville, Tennessee,
Knoxville, yeah.
Yes, Osaka, Japan. But yeah, it's
Dylan, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say take a wild guess where they unveiled vanilla Coke?
Atlanta.
What year was it?
The year was 2000 or 2001 when they unveiled it. And guess where they did?
It was in the U.S.
Yes.
I guess Atlanta, which is Coke's headquarters, but I was wrong.
You're wrong.
I don't know, Chattanooga? How about Butte, Montana? Whatever fucking random-ass city that no one would go to.
Nope. It's right near
Can I make a guess?
Putnam, Connecticut,
right.
about a 12-minute drive from
What?
you right now, Joe, at the Vanilla Bean Cafe.
right down the road.
Had a World Fair.
Vanilla Bean
shit.
Cafe, which I used to go to when I used to do track
not a
days
World
at
Fair.
Thompson all the time. Go to the Vanilla Bean Cafe, and all the walls are covered in vanilla Coke things in there. Picture them at the podium. Right near you, Joe. Go there for breakfast sometime or wherever you fucking eat.
Hold on. So you're telling me this? I mean, this seems backwards to me. So cherry Coke came before vanilla Coke?
Yep.
Oh no, that's established. We all know that. When I was growing up, there wasn't one. Vanilla
I didn't know
Coke.
that.
Vanilla Coke
Yeah.
came out in 2001.
You
Or
were
2002.
probably remember when Vanilla Coke came out, right? Dom?
I remember it because it was.
Yo,
fucking
I don't
amazing.
like any colas, so I don't know anything about.
anyways,
this.
it came
I
out
don't
when you
drink
were
them, but
alive.
I love them. Yeah, Joe, we gotta go.
I would have
there. That
figured
place is
vanilla
the
would have been a
shit.
much. I would have figured vanilla would have been a much more common thing than cherry Coke.
You're not thinking of soda pop, the soda jerks with all like the raspberry and cherry, all the syrups and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
vanilla was more of a dessert treat. That's why they would put it in cola. They were like, "Hey, here we go. This is what we're doing
There
now."
we go, dessert.
I mean,
for
vanilla Coke
Yeah.
definitely sucks. I mean, they barely even sell it anymore because everyone hates it besides
Vanilla
Jeff.
Coke is the best one, dude. I
Of
love
course, you
Vanilla
like it
Coke.
too. Of course,
So
you like
damn
it too.
good. So,
gross.
my final thoughts and all this is I
Thank
hope
you,
the World
Dylan. Bring
Fair
back to final
comes
thoughts.
back rock hard and as magnificent as the 1893 one. I want it all. I think.
I'm
it's
sorry,
a-
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Has it been canceled? Is it like
I don't fucking know. It's probably some
H.J.
little
Rimmons
shit
where it's
thing.
canceled now?
H.J. Rimmons thing. It's probably some little whatever. I want like a real deal Chicago one again. That's open
Absolutely.
for 6 months that you buy a plane ticket to go to. Nothing like that exists except the Olympics, and I don't give a fuck about that. So this sounds more fun. Like I want to see the weird, the new, the cool. That's not like people trying to sell you shit. Just like, hey, check out this new fucking the new woolly mammoth. Check it out. It's here at the new fucking
The
World's
new
Fair.
dodo.
That's it. We just brought it back to life. That's what I'm talking about right there.
Yep. I agree. If you gave me 2 tickets, one to the new reinvented World's Fair,
Where the
or
woolly
you can
mammoth is.
go see all the Olympic events, summer and winter, I'd be like,
Lifetime pass.
It's a no-brainer. It's
Yeah.
a no-brainer. I'm going World's Fair.
World's Fair.
I want to
all
go on
fucking
whatever the
day.
newest version of the Ferris wheel is. I want to
Yep.
see what the new nylon is, and I want to ride the bullet.
Yes, you do. Definitely.
Dom, do you want me to go next, or do you want to go next?
That wasn't your final thought?
No, you asked us what we learned, which is obviously
Oh,
not
that was
canon.
my final thoughts.
No,
that was
Dylan
just
started
your final
talking about
thought.
final thoughts.
So, Joe, what's your final thoughts then?
No, Joe. I'll
Is he
go.
fucking with us?
Jesus Christ.
He's
I'll
fucking
go
with
because
us.
you'll have a better final thought than me.
Go ahead, Dom.
What? What are you laughing at? What?
I just think the name Mudget is funny. Is that?
Hey, he was a highly respected. Okay, maybe not that, but he was a person of society.
He had money that he stole.
My final thoughts are: holy shit! If you're going to become America's first serial killer, you got to do it right. And H.H. Holmes did it right. He knew how to beat. He's top dog.
He
knew
set
what
the
he was
standard,
doing.
and no one has lived up to
He
that
had
since.
everything going. Yeah, it probably. I mean, every single time that they had a new serial killer, like, oh, this is this guy. I don't think anything even came close until
You're right.
Yeah, Gacy
Jeffrey
was just
Dahmer.
burying bodies
But-
under his floorboards. It's like that's amateur status.
dude,
You gotta
That's
dump it down
nothing.
the chute,
It's still
burn
there,
it in
you
the
gotta burn
kiln,
it.
Yeah.
sell the
But
skeletons.
that being said, how impressive though! 20 years after Chicago burnt to the ground, they were hosting a World Fair, and in 1890, when they had to pass to get, they beat out New York and Los Angeles. They picked Chicago.
Yeah.
And boy, did they. I mean, the Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel.
Yep.
Do you know how much a 20-meter Ferris wheel costs? Because I do. It's about $850,000 today, used. I'm talking like a Ferris wheel from like probably 2010.
Dude, I could get
20
one on
meters,
Facebook Marketplace.
$850,000.
Dylan, do you notice we looked this up?
No. You don't use Facebook Marketplace. You go to usedrides.com.
You have to sign up.
It's been open on my phone for 5 years.
That's how long. Me, Brendan, and Don came up with this idea. How much does a Ferris wheel cost? And we had to debate it for the entire night. And it's hard to find out.
It's when you and Jeff were living at the hotel still.
Yeah.
Which, viewers, it's not a hotel. That was the name of the building. It was 3 apartments.
Yeah, but still.
We're standing on the roof of a restaurant outside the back of it, waiting to go to dusk to see Sanguine Moon, Jeff Ramos and Russell Weed's badass black metal
They're
band.
coming back, and Dan Taurasi's going to play for them, too.
Nice. Yeah, they do need a third member.
Yep.
That's fucking awesome. And it's me, Brendan, and Joe standing out there, and we see a carnival in the distance. You know, one of those mobile carnivals, and then I think it was Brendan just goes, how much do you think a Ferris wheel costs? And I went, do you want to find out? And within about 10, 15 minutes, I had the website up, and I can tell you how much it costs to buy a fried dough trailer.
It's not as easy as Googling how much the Ferris wheel costs, though. It's like Googling how much does a car cost.
It takes effort.
It's like cars cost a lot of different things.
Yeah,
like, what are you talking about? Like
for the most of it, they want you to
year.
Yeah. Well, also, a lot of the websites are auctions where you have to sign up. You have to have an account.
You don't just tell anybody.
So it was hard to find one where I could see it without it. You know, there's 20
Pussy.
meters, there's 16 meters, there's 10 meters, there's 15s, there's 8s, there's 6s, and there's 4s are all like the most common size. When you get like the 4 to 10 meter, those are the ones that are on trailers that you see in the parking lot at Navin Rink.
Yeah, those ones are
for a quick little carnival.
That's weak shit.
But none of them are steam powered. Are 264 feet tall. Have 36 carousels that hold 60 people each. They made $1.4 million off of 50-cent tickets.
There you go.
That's what I get out of the World's Fair, is how spectacular Ferris wheels became compared to what they started as. Smaller, but exponentially more probably a lot cheaper, actually, not more expensive.
Yeah, but still.
Basically, well, my takeaway is Ferris wheels. That's what I'm here to talk about.
Yeah, dude, fucking A. And
maybe someday I'll sell them.
You should buy one. So that's a wrap on the this episode of the podcast. And just remember, guys, don't be an amateur like John Wayne Gacy. Go pro, like HH12s. Go pro. He is the ultimate. He's the only pro.
Can you buy me 2 bottles of wine? Don't be a pussy.
That's it, guys. We'll see you next week. We love you. Keep the parties coming.
Bye. Have a beautiful time.
Sweet home, Chicago. 6 and 3 is 9. 9 and 9 is 18.
An electric energy card from Pokemon.
That's what I was going to guess. Pokemon card. Yeah.
Guessed it.
It was 264 feet tall. It had 36 carousels, and each carousel could hold 60 people.
Fuck you. Getting up there,
I've had a human bone rubbed on my face at a young age. Nothing's gonna pass that.
Well, in a series, they were no-name people. But it wasn't just no-name people. He was killing people he knew, too. And they still couldn't catch him. It was like, he wanted to get caught. He was killing kids, he was killing women, he was killing men, he was killing everybody. And no one was catching the guy. I thought you were a man of your word, Mr. Holmes. But no, I'm not. I've been scamming you for 20 years. I'm very far from a man of my word.
If anyone ever got suspicious, a cop shows up, it's like, oh yeah, no, come on, come inspect it. And put him into a room, lock it, turn the gas on.
I wouldn't put it past him. I would not put it past him. There's no radio interview.
You know, take the cops. If the cop came on a horse and wagon, you take that, you bring it out of town, you sell the horse, you sell the wagon. If the cop came on foot, well, no problem. You just burn everything with them anyways.
Ends up killing Igor's wife and 2 of her kids to try to get the fucking insurance money. And the guy's out of control, dude. And also, Mr. Holmes, dying of a fire doesn't count if it's in a drawer in your basement. It was an accident.
Well, the craziest thing was that he took out a huge insurance policy
himself. The ultimate scam.
So they buried him with millions of dollars.
So 1960.
Sexy. 1969.
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I'm going World's Fair.
World's Fair.
I want to go
all
on whatever
fucking
the
day.
newest version of the Ferris wheel is. I want to
Yep.
see what the new nylon is, and I want to ride the bullet.
Yes, you do.
You got it.
Thanks. Bye.
You go ahead and say it.
Wait, what do you want me to say?
No, you say I'm gonna kill the president, and then I have the dirt on you. Then you won't tell anybody I ate your entire burger.
I'm not gonna say that I want to kill the president.
I'm just joking. I'll stop the recording. All right, now, but just between you and me, like it's a joke. Say I'm going to kill the president and look into the camera when you say it. Like it'll be like a funny thing, you know.
So like you want like
say to the camera, I'm going to kill the president of the United States of America.
Like that camera right there.
Yeah.
That one right there.
Yeah, it'll be funny. It'll be like a funny thing, you know.
So you want me to say that camera right there?
No, I want you to say, I am going to kill the president of the United States of America. And, like that. But that you say it, though.
But you want me to say it in Spanish?
What would make you think that I wanted you to say it in Spanish? I didn't even bring up.
Well, because you already said it in English. So why would I say it in English?
Well,
I should do it in another language, right?
Well, because I just asked, because we speak English, and I just asked you to say. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to say it in Swahili? I don't know why you came up with another language.
I don't know. I can't speak Swahili.
Well, I can't speak English, but it didn't stop me.
You're a really determined man, aren't you?
Will you just say that you want to kill the president, and you say the date and your middle name too?
Is your last name Mudget?
Will you just talk into the microphone and then tell people
I am talking into the microphone right now.
Tell people where you live, how old you are, and
tell
then
people where I live, how old I am,
the president of
and
the United States of America.
Yeah, I can't. What are you saying? That doesn't make any sense to me.
You know what? Sometimes when I talk to you, it really makes me think of this.
I know fucking everything.